like to call the regular Board of Supervisors meeting November 6th to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Williams.
Here.
Mr. Bill Harris.
Here.
Mr. Crittenton.
Here.
Mr. Jesse.
Here.
Mr. Don Harris.
Here. Could I have a prayer?
You need some prayer. You ain't praying with
Yeah,
me
need a
yet.
lot of prayer.
Let us close our eyes and meditate for a second and pray to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Lord God, it's few gathered here today. Father, thanking you for what we laid down last night and allowed to wake up this morning. Thanking you, Father, for giving us a mind, giving us a body, Father. And we pray that the understanding that you give us, Father, will be a blessing and an uplifting in your sight. Father, come with Middlesex County, Father. Be with us, Father, because we think we are special. Father, help us to do the right thing to serve the people and the county. This is my prayer. In Jesus' name, we all do pray. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Ms. Hammond, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, moving right along, I'd like approval for the consent agenda, please.
I'll make a motion we approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Mr. Jesse,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Crittenden. Any further discussion? Any additions or changes to the minutes? Seeing none, hearing none, roll call for the vote, please.
Mr. Bill Harris.
Yes.
Mr. Crittenton.
Yes.
Mr. Jesse.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Don Harris.
Aye, motion approved. Thank you. Okay, moving right along, I'd like to open the floor for any public comments. Thank you. Seeing none, I'll close public comments. Next, I'd like to have a recognition award for Eileen Cole. So if you'd stand or come forward, and I'll offer Sheriff Bushy the opportunity to speak on her behalf, if you'd like.
You can do it, Chairman. I already spoke to her the other day.
Okay. That's fine. Ms. Cole, we wanted to recognize your service with the county. It's been very strong for us over the years, and we certainly appreciate it. And I'm assuming that the sheriff has also said he hates to see you go as well, correct? So anyway, with that, I'd like to read the resolution. Mr. Walker, do you have anything you'd like to say?
I just want to say we kind of gave her roasting at her going away party, and it's been a pleasure working with you. You've done a lot for this county. You've really helped the sheriff and I out a whole lot with grants, and you are going to be sorely missed. And but I look forward to seeing you around, and I don't think you're going to be a stranger. So enjoy your retirement and go with Godspeed. Thank you.
And I'd like to read the resolution R 2024-002 in recognition of Eileen Cole, E911 Dispatch Supervisor for the Middlesex County Sheriff's Office, and her support to the Middlesex County in general. Whereas Ms. Cole has served for 8 years as Dispatch Supervisor for the Middlesex County Sheriff's Office from October 2016 through October 2024, and whereas through Ms. Cole's commitment as a grant writer, she has written approximately $1.8 million worth of grants for Middlesex County Sheriff's Office and Middlesex County combined, and Ms. Cole worked for 15 years for the dispatch service of Gloucester Sheriff's Office from March '93 through March 2008. She has worked for 8 years for the dispatch service of York, Poquoson, Williamsburg 911 Center from March 2008 through October 2016. Ms. Cole has served for a total of 31 years and 8 months working for the E911 service. Now therefore it be resolved that the Middlesex County Board of Supervisors hereby recognizes Mrs. Eileen Cole for her loyal dedication to the E911 service and her commitment to Middlesex County, Virginia, and citizens she has faithfully served. Thank you very much for your service. Don't go anywhere yet.
No, you're good. Move in a little bit, Dawn. There you go. Thank you.
All right, moving right along, constitutional officers, treasurer report is on page 4754. Commissioner Revenue report only, page 55. Any questions or comments about either one of those two items? If not, item C, Sheriff's Office, Puller Center change order, Ben Burton, and that's on page 56.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As you know, my name is Ben Burton. I'm senior engineer with the Bay Design Group. You have a memorandum dated October 30th in your package that summarizes where the construction is on the Middlesex County Sheriff's Office. I'll briefly go over it. The site infrastructure is about 85% complete. Security fencing is there for installation. And the main work that is happening now is on the interior of the building. And in particular, Norman Construction has been coordinating with the county on IT materials and getting the major HVAC and electrical work. One of the things that we are working with on the county is with Dominion Energy is finalizing the right-of-way agreements to bring that three-phase service into the, or to the building from off-site, and expect that those agreements will be in your hands for approval by the next board meeting. At present, substantial completion is still projected for April of 2025. As you can see, we've been working on multiple applications for payment. Right now, the total to date that's been approved or is about to be approved for the work that's been done since June of 2024 is about 1.7 million. Basically, they've billed about 49% complete. There is a change order that is being brought to your attention for security enhancements. I've broken it down there into the three. They're called 18A, 18B, and 18C. 18A is for improvements to the vestibule for $27,000. 18B is about $13,000 for modifications to the holding cells, and some minor miscellaneous items, $655. A little more detail about each of the three of them. They're compiled in a total $40,797 change order. The vestibule is interesting from the standpoint that the original plans had designed to have security film on the various doors, windows, and that type of thing that was would stop, supposedly stop bullets. It turns out that that film that was specified would interrupt the bullets, but not completely stop them. And as the sheriff looked at the details of what was going to happen there and what needed to happen in that vestibule area, it was decided that the best thing to do was to tear down those wooden walls, replace them with a CMU walls and a security doors that were level 1 that will completely stop any bullets. I think you all got a quick idea of what that was going to be when you visited the site back in mid-September, and there was a lot of explanation between the various members of the board and the sheriff about what was going to happen there. One of the other alternates that the sheriff brought up was possibly just lining those existing walls with steel plating. It turns out that that was, when it all got priced out, the steel plating would have been an additional $20,000 to that $27,000. So we eliminated that as an alternative and are going with CMU walls and security doors. On the holding cells, we specified the holding cells, specifically the packaged holding cells, steel bars and that type of thing. And as the sheriff has reconsidered and looked at that and considered what the arrested people can do, how they act within those holding cells, it was decided that the cells themselves, the barred cells, needed to be separated so that no one could reach through one holding cell to the other, nor chip through anything, because there are different sexes in each of the holding cells, different types of arrangements. So this arrangement provides for CMU walls between the holding cells and the hallway that goes by the holding cells so that no one can reach out and grab anybody in the other holding cells or walking down the hallway themselves. We went with CMU as opposed to wood stud, that type of thing, because they could be cleaned easier. They could not be bored through by someone sitting there scratching through a wood stud wall with just minor cover on it. So that's the $12,998 item. The miscellaneous items, basically there's some, let me look at the detail on this. Basically, we're adding some special ceilings, rated ceilings to several of the sprinkler and electrical room ceilings to protect them, but that's balanced by a credit of $1,600 for elimination of several bollards that we had planned in the project. So if you have any other questions, we've brought this to you because it exceeds the $20,000 limit that you put on change orders before they were brought to you, and it is, although it's necessary that it be taken care of now, when we got the information, it wasn't something that had to be done right that minute. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Questions for Mr. Burton?
I've got a few. You brought up ballards. We'll start backwards. You brought up the ballards. Can we get us a breakdown on the credit we got there for the ballards? In other words, you got 1,600. Was it 4 of them? And the reason I ask this is I think later on in the project, there may be a time when you see the ballards need to be put in somewhere else perhaps. And this would give us a little bit of an insight as to what we'd be looking at should that come up. So I think we need that broke down a little bit. Right, you don't have to give it to us now. That's not, I don't mean put you
The
on the spot.
credits that occurred on 18A were related to work that had been planned for the vestibule, and that involved the security glazing film that had been specified and the deletion of several elements of ceramic tile. And they totaled a little, as I say, a little over $9,000 credit.
I'm sorry, maybe I misunderstood. I thought
The other credit in the holding cells, there was some planned, the drywall that had to surround those holding, that had been specified to go around those holding cells, and that was $1,720 was the credit there.
The one at the very bottom, the credit of $1,600,
Excuse me?
the one at the very bottom,
18C.
Oh, okay. On 18C.
a credit
that
of
was the deletion
$1,600. I thought I heard you mention that in that credit, there was a credit for some ballards that you decided not to put in.
A credit of bollards,
Oh,
two
okay,
bollards
okay,
that we had specified that didn't need to be put in. Two bollards to protect the keypad entrances to the security gate.
and how many of them were decided not to be put in?
Excuse me?
How many were decided not to be put in?
Two.
Two, okay. So for
There's still-
reference, if we need to put some of them in somewhere else on the project, we can expect for them to be about $800 apiece then.
No, sir, there are already 6 that are still remaining, that are in the bid.
Okay. All right. The next thing I have is these change order prices. I take it that your firm is back checking those prices against what contractor's giving us?
Both me, the architect, Mr. Bushy, Mr. Nash are all looking at these change orders before we brought them to you.
So how does that process go? I mean, some of the people you mentioned are not contractors, not engineers. So I wonder, how does that process go for us? When someone comes to you with a change order,
Yes,
how do you ensure that that is the best price Middlesex County can get?
because we asked for backup information from the contractor. We compare it to items that were bid. We had a very extensive list of bid items in the project. And, for example, we had unit prices on various CMU walls that were getting added to the project. So we know generally what those walls should cost and how this relates to them. It's in the same ballpark, slightly less than what the other exterior walls that they had, because they're interior CMU walls and didn't require the same type of reinforcing. So those are the types of things we get to check against the various packages that the contractor
And I take it you're
provides.
tying time and labor to that too as well?
Excuse me?
Through the contract, what the labor was specified in the contract per hour quote, you're also tying that to any kind of tasks that need to be performed?
And all told, let's see, this change order, number 18, is a total of $40,797. So that brings the total change orders that have occurred on this contract to $177,000 on the $3.4 million project, which is about 5% to date. We had expected that in a contingency type of project of this nature, we'd expected that it might be up as high as 10%. We're at 5%, and we believe, except for those other items that are listed down there at the bottom, that we're definitely not going to get much higher. Several of the future change orders that are coming in are items that are basically optional. Some of them are optional. For example, refinishing the doors. We had in the project to save and reuse all the existing doors in the building. And that's fine, they can be reused, but as you look at them and see what they would look like compared to a new door, there would be a significant difference. It's like reusing some of the doors that are over in the Woodard Building that have been cleaned for the last 20 years, but these doors have a little bit worse situation happening to them. So refinishing the doors may be an option. So there are those type of things that we're still looking at, but we're on the, let's say, the downhill run to finish the project up.
You mentioned this exceeded the $20,000 that we had talked about in previous meetings, and at one time, we gave the county administrator permission to use that $20,000 should he see fit to keep the project going forward. It's my understanding that there's not you don't have your checkbook ready for another $20,000 without the board's approval. Is that?
That is correct, and we went back and looked at the minutes from the meeting when y'all established that policy, and we have a point of clarification we want to ask the board for in my report, whether that was a per occurrence or a cumulative 20,000, because it's kind of unclear in the minutes how that was established. We're going to talk to you about that later tonight. But we approved that $20,000 one last month.
Yes.
As I recall, it had to meet two conditions. It had to be a very time-sensitive issue, plus not exceed $20,000.
Are these change orders you're asking for today, are they time sensitive?
No, they're not. I mean, if they get moved down the road, they may go a little higher because of price changes in equipment. We hope they'll be approved today.
If this project is finished on time, your organization, Bay Design, is there any kind of incentive there?
Excuse me?
The project is finished on time.
Okay,
Is there any kind of extra incentive there for the engineering firm?
no.
How about the contractor doing the job if it's finished on time?
If there's no incentive for him to do it, other than the fact that could be a $250 a day
Liquid damages?
if he exceeds the contract that it hadn't been
Sure,
adjusted
it'd have to be-
for.
I understand. There'd have to
Time
be
issue.
certain criteria would have to be met
Yeah.
for that to come into
A
play.
liquidated damages type of thing.
Okay. Thank you very much.
To date, he's on schedule, looks to be on schedule, and we've discussed several items that may postpone the schedule. And it's basically involved delivery of the equipment, especially the generator set. They are promising to have that in and available, and the project could get substantially complete without that installed because all the emergency supply could be handled by a temporary generator set if we wanted to move ahead. But right now, based on last Monday's meeting with the contractor, looks like it's going to come in on time and be able to be installed to handle everything.
That 10% change order, though, that's a little rough on us there, you know. We need to make, that 10% change order that you brought up for the whole project, that's getting a little high. I think, I'd say,
Well, that was the,
I know if it's your rough estimate, I understand that, and you're just looking at things. We're at 5. We don't like 10, I can tell
we
you
did
that.
not, the contractor is not aware of that number. That was a number that we suggested to the county administrator to put in the financing as a contingency item.
So no disrespect, but we're in public. I'm sure the contractor's aware of that 10%.
Well, now that we've asked the question, but
Just saying, I'm sure that's fine that they
There-
are, but that's not what this board is looking for, is 10%.
we've had several change orders that they've brought to our attention that we've just disallowed.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Burton, I was just curious, where did the idea of using that security film, where'd that come from? Is that some sort of an industry standard now, or is that?
No, it's several of the sheriff's offices that have been done around here and other projects where the architect has worked to have security systems involved, courthouses and schools and that type of thing. The security film over the windows is generally a straightforward one. It turns out that this security film that was specified didn't provide the level of security that the sheriff wanted to have for that vestibule area. The entrance vestibule and the windows into his secretary's office and the windows into the magistrate's office. So
Okay, thank you.
Is it what the sheriff wanted, or was it some specifications that it did not meet once you dug a little deeper? Weren't there some specifications that that film had to meet, and then come to find out it didn't meet those specifications?
it did not meet complete, it would not stop a bullet completely.
So it didn't meet the specifications
It met
that
the
we... Okay, so it's
specifications,
not
but-
like the sheriff just came up with something.
No, that's correct. Yeah,
Okay, so it
just-
didn't meet the specifications on the plans, and that's why we had to do
It might
something
stop a small
different.
bullet, but some of the larger bullets, not necessarily.
Yeah, sure, Bushy, I would just like to say, appreciate everything you're doing along with this project, being there. But also, if everything falls into place like it should at the end of April, how long is it gonna take you to transfer everything over and up and running? I'm just guessing now. You don't have to keep me to it, but I'm just curious, how long would it take you to transfer everything over and being up and running?
It'll probably take about a month.
A month? Okay, I was just curious on that.
The confusing thing, what I think a lot of people are not understanding here is, what I specified when we did the security film, I specified as a level 1. Okay? And there's different types of levels of security. The film that was presented to us was a smashed glass. It's not even bullet resistant. It's just a film put into the glass. And the misunderstanding there, I wanted that whole area as a level 1. We could go as high as a level 4, like the deputies wear on their vests, but we wanted something that would stop or slow down a 22 to a 9mm. And that's a level 1. And that's what we're trying to get to.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? I got a couple. We had gone over to the office and looked at the retaining wall, which I'm assuming is in the front, that there was some concern that that wasn't going to be, or possibly it would fall or what have you. And you have that on the future potential change order. So I'm assuming that's not going to hold up any other process that's going on for the renovation.
That's correct. It's
Is that
not-
correct?
And it's a small segment, maybe about a 6-foot segment of the, one of the front retaining walls that we're going to eliminate and just grade down in front of it. So it's not holding up anything.
Okay, so if I heard you correctly, the retaining wall is not going to hold up the rest of the project on the, and you don't have quotes at this point on what to replace that or take it down or whatever you decide to do on it. You don't have any price structure at this
That's
point?
correct. They're currently working on that one, on the lighting controls, on the refinish the existing doors, restroom fixtures. All 5 of them are being worked on, but they are not time sensitive.
I would caution you, don't come to us and say, we need this immediately to take care of. Give us some time to digest what you're going to bring forward, if and when you bring those forward.
We certainly will.
And that won't, at this point, jeopardize us being in non-compliance with the target finish dates with the construction company,
We
correct?
are constantly talking, not only within the team, but with the contractor about the need to keep things moving along.
Okay, wonderful. Any other questions for Mr. Burton? Thank you for being here, Sheriff. Thank you for being here. We'll be seeing you. All right. All right. I guess next is introduction of the new Assistant Commonwealth Attorney. Oh, do we need a motion? And we're looking at approving 01 to 09 and 18A, B, and C. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Also move, I'll make that motion, Mr. Chair.
Motion made by Mr. Jesse. Is there a second?
I will second it.
Second by Mr. Crittenden. Any further discussion?
I do want to see a good product for the sheriff's office in Middlesex County built there.
All right. No further discussion.
And
Roll call.
just one other thing,
Sorry.
and exactly how much money we approving? Is it 40,000 or 117? I mean, 177?
It's 4797, correct?
Okay,
40,797, yes, sir.
All right.
okay. All right.
No further discussion? Roll call on the motion, please.
Mr. Crittenden,
Yes.
Mr. Jesse,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Bill Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Don Harris.
Aye, motion's approved. I tried to slip out of there without having to vote on that. All right, moving right along. We have Mike Hurd, who's going to introduce the new Assistant Commonwealth Attorney. Would you guys come forward, please?
Good afternoon. This is Patrick O'Donnell. He goes by Pat. I see on your agenda, it says Pat O'Connell, and he's reminded me of the same thing today, that's O'Donnell. And we both talked about how I have to remember D rather than C. Although in looking at his resume, I don't know if he's ever got a C or a D. He graduated from the University of Pennsylvania back in 1989, and then at Georgetown University Law School, he graduated in 1997, summa cum laude. He has worked as an attorney for 27 years in Washington, D.C. He left his partnership with the HWG law firm in D.C. He calls it a small firm. I looked on the website and counted 50 attorneys. So I guess we have a difference of opinion of the size of the law firm. Yes, yes. So Pat has litigated white-collar criminal cases and commercial disputes with experience in financial matters, international cases, public corruption, and communications law. He's been counsel and represented lawyers concerning legal ethical issues. He has lectured in South Africa on legal issues, ethical issues. He has been published in criminal defense journals. He's represented member of Congress, cabinet members, Defense Department employees, major corporations, foreign corporate executives, FBI agents, Navy SEALs, and has been his firm general counsel for over 20 years. So I'm very pleased to introduce to you our new and first Middlesex County Assistant Commonwealth Attorney, Pat O'Donnell.
Welcome, Pat.
Thank you very much.
Glad to have you here. Any questions for Mr. Hurd or Mr. O'Donnell? No? Okay, Mr. Chunin, would you come do a photo op of these two gentlemen?
Do you want him to say how pleased he is to be here?
Yeah, that'd be
I will follow Mr. Hurd's cue. I am indeed pleased to be here. I look forward to going to work every single day in that courthouse right across the street and trying criminal cases and doing it here in Middlesex County, where, as I told Mr. Hurd, my head hits the pillow and I sleep much more soundly than I did in Fairfax County, Virginia. So thank you very much for the warm welcome. Look forward to serving you.
And, sir, you are residing in Middlesex County, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's right.
Now, currently?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yep, just moved down. My wife and I bought our property here 3 years ago,
Wonderful. Wonderful.
so we're not quite strangers.
He's
All
got a
right.
much nicer commute now.
Yes, sir, I do.
Mr. Hurd, would you just come back to the podium for a minute?
Yes.
So are you happy?
Me?
That's who I'm asking. Are you
I'm
happy?
getting there.
You're getting there?
Getting there, right. Gotta
Okay.
get trained on state law and that sort of thing.
All right.
Thank you. I'm happy with your help.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All righty.
Mr. Chairman, if
I'm
I may.
sorry?
No, I apologize, I'm interrupting you. I just want to make sure that we're, if I may for just a moment, make sure that we're clear on the change order that was approved, that it was to approve 18A, B, and C, which was
Yes.
$40,797. And I just want to make sure that we have that in the record to clarify that that was the board's intent in their motion.
Right.
And everyone's nodding yes. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. All righty. Introduction of our new engineer.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to do this from a seat if you don't mind.
Sure.
I'm very pleased to introduce to the board and to the community our new Executive Director of the Water Authority and part-time county engineer, Mr. Charles England. He goes by Chip. Chip is a graduate of West Point Military Academy, United States Military Academy in West Point. And he also had some coursework at Virginia Tech and Averett. He graduated from Averett in 2014 with his master's in business administration, summa cum laude as well. So we are blessed with highly educated folks coming to work for us here in Middlesex. Chip will be joining us part-time. He's going to take over, he's already been working with Jim Nagy, taking over the head of the Water Authority, and we're very pleased to have him. Chip came to us with a wealth of experience from Henrico County, Prince George County, and Hanover County as Director of Utilities. So again, very happy to have Chip.
And just for the public's notice, and this is a combined position.
We
that we're
combined the
talking
two
about.
positions, yes, sir, and Chip is semi-retired. We're stealing some of that retirement back from him because he's going to join us part-time.
Wonderful.
Yep.
Chip, could you stand just so everybody can see you? Wonderful. Thank you, sir. We are fortunate to have you, and welcome to Middlesex County.
Certainly glad to be here. Happy to serve with you guys, the great citizens.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir.
They're going to see us a lot more often, so they don't need a picture of us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, moving right along to agency and staff reports. VDOT report only. I was going to call you. I saw you.
I'm actually here.
Wonderful.
He is here to talk about speed limits in Deltaville.
Oh, is that why I'm here? I did want to give the board an update of kind of what's going on in Middlesex County. Just an update for paving. That season, the paving season is winding down, thankfully. I know that there was recently some issues with the paving contractor and the traffic control on 33. I got a call from Mr. Walker. Those have been addressed. We did speak with the contractor. I think they were just so eager to get it done. And they did. They did move pretty quickly through there. But those issues have been addressed with the contractor. Reminded them, they need to slow down. I know we all have deadlines that we want to meet, but we can't sacrifice safety to meet those deadlines. So we did have that conversation with them. Another major project that's upcoming that I did want to mention to the board, the Norris Bridge replacement project. That public hearing is set to be held on the 10th of December of 2024 at the Lancaster Middle School from 5 to 7 p.m. So I did want to mention that here. That will present the preliminary plans, the concept plans. I want to be very clear that these are concept plans. These are not finished product. It's not necessarily what you're going to see out there or what's going to be built, but they do need to get that public feedback to finish those plans and that design. The right-of-way phase is currently underway for that project, so they're pushing ahead with that part of it. They're looking to advance this project any way that they possibly can. There are certain milestones that they have to hit before they can advance it much further, but environmental, that geotech, those types of things have been completed. Or they are in the process of being completed. So did apply for the additional funding to accelerate the project even further. Have not heard back from the federal government in regards to that grant that was applied for, but thank you for the county's support in that endeavor. The Deltaville Shared Use Path, another update. It's still chugging along. Public hearing has not been set yet, but we're anticipating towards the end of January, at the latest, beginning of February for public hearings on that project. Again, as a reminder, this is to construct a shared use path from the EVMS building to Green Coves Road on Route 33 as Phase 1. Some other highlights, we did just have the Oyster Festival. That seemed to be a success. We did provide traffic control and cleanup for that festival, as we do every year. So thank you for all of our local partners out there to make that a success. And final litter pickup and mow has been completed in Middlesex County for the year. And I know it's 80 degrees outside, but we're preparing for snow. Hopefully we don't get any, but we're going to be prepared for it regardless. So we're stocked up with sand and salt, and we recently had our dry runs. So we're getting ready here in Middlesex for snow that hopefully will not come. If you want to go see some snow, go out west or something, but we don't want it here. But with that, I will be happy to take any question. Oh, the Route 33 speed study in Deltaville. I do need to get a little clarification of specifically where that you would like that to be studied. I know that in the last, I think it's about 10 years, that stretch of Deltaville through 33 has been studied 3 separate times, one of which resulting in the reduction of the 45-mile-per-hour speed limit that was previously there to 35.
Right. Well, ultimately, I think the planning department and the county have looked at trying to do a share the road type of situation where the pavement is very wide with bike lanes and things of that nature. So that probably will trigger a slower speed in any event. But I would think you'd want to look at everything east of Sandy Bottom Market, North End Road, all the way down to Stingray Point.
Okay.
And then maybe stage it based on the width of the asphalt.
Okay.
Yeah. Because, the asphalt narrows down when you get down towards the rescue squad.
And that is still the plan, by the way, when they come through with the resurfacing schedule to look at restriping those locations that we can have.
Right. And I think it's currently 45 miles an hour up to Hardyville. Is that correct?
It's 45, yes, just past the Hardyville.
Yeah. I don't think we've had any complaints that going up to 45 through there, past North End Road. Yeah.
Before the speed
We'll
limit,
run some traffic, speed cameras on that.
before the speed limit will be changed, will there be any kind of town hall meeting and give the citizens there a chance to,
Well,
speak?
there is no plan to currently change the speed limit as of right now. It was reduced from 45 to 35, I think in 2012 or something like that. And there's been other studies that have been done, like the piece at the very end. That was studied most recently, I believe, in 2016.
When the matter was raised last month, or the month before, there was an understanding that laws changed and given the board a little bit more authority over maybe setting a lower speed limit if they think it needs.
Okay.
Yeah, and so the speed study would probably be worthwhile to do, just to give the board added information. But if that is indeed the case, then maybe the board could look at that speed study and see if they want to set a speed limit of 25 miles an hour. And there have been a number of residents in Deltaville that have, through the years, contacted either Dave's office or my office to ask about golf carts, making it a golf cart community.
Now, there are certain stipulations with that law. I will get you all of that information. I believe one of them is that it has to be currently 25 miles per hour.
That may be
So-
some of the rationale behind this. We haven't had an official request from the
Okay.
DCA or any community group to ask for a golf cart ordinance yet for the Deltaville area, but I think the speed study could go parallel with such a request coming in the future.
Sure.
Yep.
I think before a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit would be considered, a town hall would be in order to allow the citizens a chance to speak.
Yeah.
I don't think we should be changing it without giving them that opportunity.
And we can definitely hold some town halls at the Maritime Museum or at the DCA building, solicit some public input. Would the board want to do that prior to the speed study or afterwards? Okay,
I do too.
very good.
A
Make that
few
happen.
things. All right, I've been getting a lot of complaints down in Whiten Creek that it seems like you're driving too fast in the area, Matt's area, he down there. Anyway, I'm getting a lot of complaints at Whiten Creek that they're driving too fast. And the homeowners association is wondering, what can they do? I think you'll try to put straps or something to let people know that you need to slow down. It's a subdivision, and you need to slow down. I don't know exactly, what you need to do. It's a state-owned road. You do the development like you should, then give it to the state, then you're responsible for what need to be done. And also found by what Matt was saying a few minutes ago, that locally, like the Board of Supervisors or whatever, can slow speeds down. And the other thing I got on Dirt Bridge Road, which goes into Creek Ferry, we've been complaining about that for about 3 years. And if that Family Tree or Dollar Store get put on that corner, we get a lot of traffic there. So it should be on the study. The only thing VDOT done when we talk about it, it don't need a study, because the only thing VDOT done was post a couple signs at 55. And we have saw accidents and everything else, and they related saying all over the state of Virginia, they don't study. And I said, well, go Short Pump Road over West Point. They did lower the speed limit back to 45 from there all the way back out that section by Whitmore's. That's 45. So you really could, and it's kind of like to me was a slap in the face, because you asked to lower it, and the only thing they did was put a sign say 55. Then you get the same thing, a near miss. The second thing is Route 619 and Route 620 at Locust Hill. The road is opening up. We're getting more traffic on there passing by the schools. They did a good job at the schools, now, but it stops once it drops down the hill. You go down the hill, the roads start opening up. And also, when we close the bridge down, you cause more traffic on that road. And I'm not sure, you might need a stoplight out there by the 7-Eleven at that intersection. We got one down the bottom because the stoplight will slow the speed limit down too. Because you can sit there and look, and you'll see, I don't want to see something happen to say, well, I think it was happened one time before that. They say if something happened, then we could do something. Somebody get killed, 2 or 3 accidents happened down there on Creeks Ferry Road, and nothing was done because according to put it in the computer, it didn't show up or nobody was pushing it. I'm looking at you as being my man. I'm not worried about going up there and put it in that computer. 619, 620, that's the traffic. And the other thing, they're doing a good job on the asphalt down there. Nice, pretty white lines. You know what I'm gonna say next, right? Now, I have a list that we turned in probably a couple of years ago that people do bikes and walk up and down that highway. And I'm looking at it all the time. And they have said the same thing over a period of time. How hard is it to put a line down there with a bike sign in it? Basically from Saluda, because you have enough surface on both sides of the road. And I'm not saying nothing against Deltaville, but I just want to make it to Hartfield, because that's where you don't want to print the line.
Right.
Route 619, Route 620 that goes by the school. Maybe a stoplight study or whatever, but that will slow the music, slow it down. We have checked with the guy that runs the nursery, but cutting the bushes back. Well, when you come up from the post office, you can't see it till you get out in the road. And it's not a matter of when something's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. And then I've come back to you the same thing, say it was your fault. So I figure if you're doing something, then I can always sell on it. Appreciate it for your listening.
Yes, sir.
Mr. McKnight, I have a question, on this that was in our packet. It says construction project completed, and then it says Cape Seal routes 2024. Have all of those been done?
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
In Urbana
Okay,
specifically, yes, sir.
okay. And I want to piggyback on what Reggie was talking about, particularly from a bike path scenario. I noticed there's a section there from up past Cook's Corner, I think it's past Christ Church School, where the road seems to be, there's additional space from the white line going right, which almost looked like it was a potential bike path there. Can you explain why that was done there?
You're talking about the shoulder on the
Yes.
2-lane section, just past Locust Hill or the signal right there?
Yeah, I've just noticed it several times. I should have notated exactly where it was, but it was a pretty good stretch, maybe a mile or two, that where the white line is going, the asphalt was extended out probably about 2.5, 3 feet.
Okay. Yeah, I can't really speak to why it was that way, but it's nice that it's that way.
Yes, it
I'm
is.
glad that we have it. And we certainly look at something like striping a bike lane in that area. I mean, I don't know, I think right now it's certainly wide enough to accommodate bikes, but if you're looking specifically for striping, we can.
Well, I was just more interested why that was extended out. And next time I see you, I'll have a little more
Okay.
demographic of where that is.
Okay.
If you look at the yellow lines up there, what Don is talking about is the fairly wide shoulders that we have there. And we've always kind of envisioned those when we were thinking about our master pedestrian plan, trying to utilize those as bike lanes in some fashion. Would the speed limit need to be adjusted on 33 to make those bike lanes?
I don't believe so. I mean, they're
Maybe
probably.
the cheapest bike lanes we've ever put in. Just-
They're probably being used as
Yeah.
such now.
Yeah, people walk and jog
But
on those.
we can
now.
certainly look into striping. That's.
All right. Go ahead.
I was just curious about I know we had talked about a roundabout at Stampers Bay and Route 3. I was wondering if you had any timetable, any idea when we might be able to start that?
I know it was approved for funding. I don't know off the top of my head timetable for it, but typically those projects are 4 to 5 years out, I believe, if I'm not.
Okay, all right, thank you.
But it was approved.
And there was another one at, I think, Regent Road and 33, is that correct?
That's a project, it's more, it's not a roundabout, but it's turn lanes, adding a center turn lane, if I'm not mistaken, to make those movements a little safer.
Sounds good. Okay, thank you.
I had asked you a while back about their Stormont Road, where it comes by the golf course and stuff,
It is on the resurfacing schedule,
which is, when would that be?
the upcoming one. Not this year, obviously, we're done with
Right.
that, but yes, it was on the.
2025?
Yes, sir, yeah.
I've also been asked by residents that live in Pangtang Shores, Coach Point Road,
Yes.
about would VDOT consider putting a stop sign in the center of the road there? You don't have to answer that now, just,
Putting a stop sign in the center of the road.
you know, as it comes to a dead end, you have to make a left or right on Stormont Road. They, instead of it being a stop sign away over to your right where you really can't see it, put it
Oh,
right in the middle of the road and stop people from cutting corners and everything else. And
Okay.
I think they get a little agitated at times because you got to pull up so much to be able to see down the road, and someone's coming, and I don't know if it's feasible or not, but it's been asked for you, if you would look into it.
Okay, I can look into that.
Thank you.
Mr. Jesse, you're the only one.
I don't have anything at this time.
All right. No other questions? You got anything for us today?
No, sir.
No big grants coming out that we can take advantage of?
Well, hopefully this Norris Bridge grant will be granted, and then we can move forward with that project.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you, sir, for
Thank
being
you.
here today. All righty. The school crew. Dr. Sykes, Ms. Mary, welcome.
Thank you, and good afternoon. So let me get my notes out here. We have a few pages to go through in your packet. We've got supplement requests that run through pages 60 and 68. So what I'll do is go through each of them. Stop me if you want to stop me if I'm on a particular one, or I'll just keep rolling through and answer questions at the end. Either way, it doesn't matter to me.
Okay, before you go any further,
Yes, sir.
County Attorney, can we approve all of them at once, or do we need to do those
That's a
individually?
good question.
You absolutely can do them all at once, you just have to read them out. or you can take them individually. It's absolutely
Okay,
your
thank you.
preference.
Which is your preference? I can do them either way.
I think, as you stated, if you'll go through them individually, and if we have questions, and if we get hung up on something, we can always go individually, but you have the floor, continue.
Okay. So there's a lot right now because it's at this time of year where we're asking for the carryover because all of the accounting has been closed out, fiscal years have been closed out locally and at the federal level. So I will start on page 60. That is the first one. That is textbook funds as a carryover. And so that's a carryover each year also. We don't adopt textbooks each year, and so we'll carry it to the next because textbook adoption typically costs a few $100,000 at a time when we do that. And so we don't do that on a yearly basis. We plan for that in segments. It's based on when standards are upgraded, assessments are made, and things like that.
Question.
Yes, sir.
So, some of the funds have been unspent. Is that when we're talking about a carryover,
Correct.
correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. And so for textbook funds, VDOE sets that amount. They set the amount for each school division on how much is supplied by the state, and they set how much the locality has to match.
Okay, so this is going back to at least the last meeting, maybe two, where we were waiting for the final figures of what was spent out, and I think at that time, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it was something like $337,000 that had,
I think it is in the threes. I think I have the note. 369, yes, 369,000.
okay, I was close. So what?
So that's separate from these items right here. So
Okay.
everything that I'm going to go over, excuse me, on these pages, have very specific use. And so textbooks are used for textbooks. The money that we're talking about that was not used by Middlesex County Public Schools
Yes.
is separate from these items.
Okay, do we have a number on that?
369,000.
Pardon me?
369,000.
Okay,
That was part of the FY 23-24 school budget
okay.
that in the end, the school division did not spend. And so remember, well, just to, I guess, remind everyone, is that the governor amended the budget in December. We were in the middle of the 23-24. It was in the second year of the biennium. Every year, the governor has the right to make slight amendments even to the current budget. He made slight amendments, and he actually cut back some things that we had planned on in the budget. So we became very strict about what was being spent in the school division throughout the entire division. The final budget, or the budget for 23-24, still wasn't approved until June, even though at that point, we were finishing up our FY 23-24 budget. What the General Assembly had proposed as their amendments to that budget is what went through. And so by that time, we were in the middle of June, past the June's Board of Supervisors meeting, and that was the amount of funds that were left once that state budget was final and once we knew actually what our MCPS final budget was. We approve a final budget here. We bring you a budget, you all approve a budget, but it's still based on estimates from the state level, and they can always make amendments to that, and that's what the governor did last year in December.
Okay.
So these items are separate from the $369,000 that we're saying we did not use in that budget. Anything 2% and under is expected in a school budget based on what they get from a locality. You can expect you're going to have that because, again, some of the revenues change as the year goes on. You're looking at sales tax rates and things like that, which you will not know the exact amount for each month going forward because we go forward, about a year and a half almost.
This particular $63,641.21, and you said it was a match.
Right, so there's an amount we get from the state, and there's an amount we get from the locality.
Okay, have we met the match before we carried over?
Yes.
Yes.
So this money you're carrying over?
Yes.
We already met the match, so this
Yes,
is,
sir.
Yes.
this is what it is?
Yes,
Okay.
and so we'll use that for the next round of textbook adoption, which, like I said,
which cost typically, our reading adoption last year was over 100,000, and that was just at the elementary school.
Okay, well, I think I'm hearing you right. This $63,000, that's in the fund balance. The county fund balance is good money for the schools.
Yes.
Okay,
It just, this is where the textbook funds ended at June 30.
Right.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Yeah, I think if my memory serves, we had to match the state, I think $73,000 in the budget
Yes.
in order to leverage their monies for
Yes.
textbooks, and they treat it as a separate fund.
They do.
So if y'all don't buy textbooks or use those monies, you can carry over the state's money and the localities' money in that separate fund.
As long as it's in the textbook
Right.
line.
Code of
Yep.
Virginia states that. Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure that the match is done.
Yes, sir.
You know, without making this thing complicated. If we get the money from the state, the match is done. Maybe we can get a column and see, this is good money, and we don't have to look at it twice, you know, this is what it is, so you want to transfer $63,000
I
over.
can't recall a year where we did not match to leverage as much of the state money as we could. So as soon as we get the state numbers from the schools, it's almost an automatic to make sure we leverage all those funds from the textbook fund.
Right, we certify that, sign off on that. You'll see that when we start the budget season and we start coming to you on what the budget requirements and asks and things are. You'll see that separately, textbook.
You know, I just want to see the county side match, because it got to match so y'all get the grant.
Right.
You know, I just want to keep it, so I can look at it one time and know exactly what I'm looking at.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
And actually, that is in the resolution that you guys adopt each year. The appropriations resolution. So it is broken out, the locale's responsibility and the state's responsibility for those items. Yes, sir.
Continue on, Dr. Sykes.
Okay, on page 61, this references our school nutrition. I'll just remind you that cafeteria service is all self-sufficient. There's not local funds that come into that. We do participate in the community eligibility program, meaning all of our students qualify for free breakfast and lunch without having to submit any paperwork for that. And that's reimbursed from the federal level. Every year we come to you at this time and ask for that money to be moved forward. There is the federal and VDOE watch that, and there is a max on how much money can be carried forward. And we get, if we're in that situation, they let us know ahead of time, and we make sure we're not in that situation. So the amount that we're asking to carry over falls within the VDOE guidelines also.
All right, so what we're saying here is that the money come into the fund balance. All this money comes into the fund balance. Then y'all got to do the calculation on it, and y'all give a report for something already in the fund balance.
Yes, sir. So
Okay,
this-
I see, I got you. I know what you're
Yes.
saying, because
Yes.
I want to start seeing a list of what's going in the fund balance, so it don't make it difficult for me.
And-
So I can see it
and
exactly, not even talking about what y'all doing.
And just to
Because I got you
educate
before
our
you get
newer
there.
members of the board, when you see fund and like Fund 73 on the previous page, Fund 73 for the schools means textbook funds. This one in particular that we're addressing right now is Fund 72, and that's our food service. Food service, like Dr. Seitz said, is a self-sustaining fund, which means that the funds have to be there in order for us to pay the bills. And so in doing this appropriation here, this basically is updating the general ledger in order for it to balance with what is currently at the Truist bank account. We have to have a separate bank account for our school food funds. This was the balance of the school food funds at Truist Bank on June 30. And so this is updating that general ledger to add that balance, because it doesn't come over at the end of the year.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense? And
Yep.
so now this shows a starting balance, which is what it is at Truist. And then all of the funds that come in each month are added to that at the treasurer's office level.
Thank you for that explanation.
Yes, sir.
Yep. Continue on,
All
Dr.
right.
Seitz.
On page 62, I'll go over what both of those items are. First one, purchase service at $3,500. That is the remaining that we still have not been billed for from Mosley Architects from the master plan study that they did for us. And so we're still working with them. We will be using that amount up because they are still working on some things for us. But it was $75,000, I think, that was appropriated for that plan. and I'm going back at least 2 years, 21, 22. The work that they did not come up to 75,000, but we knew we would still be calling on them for some other things, and so that comes over. The second piece, that capital outlay addition, this comes from 2022, when the governor appropriated funds to all schools in the Commonwealth to go specifically towards school construction. The nice thing about it is there was not an expiration to it, and we didn't have to rush to spend it. It can stay there, and we continue to move it when we are ready for school construction. It'll be an amount that we can use towards that.
And I did speak to our auditors at the end of this year, during their preliminary field work, and now here the last month at their closing field work, just to find out how to correctly account for this, because again, we are having to bring it into a new budget year each year. And Mr. Sanudo agreed to just keep bringing it over. You'll see, this is Fund 74, and this is the school's capital line. And so we're basically bringing it into the new calendar year, or excuse me, the new fiscal year.
So that amount does not expire. We would move that where we need it
You will see this
for the
every
potential
year.
high school.
So
Yes.
This time next year, you'll see this again if we haven't spent it.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Is there any other funds available, or is there ability to enhance that amount for construction?
There is potentially some option for school construction funds through VDOE. There's some of the things we've looked at, we don't meet the criteria. We are not a poor enough county to meet the criteria for those. I will say it's something that in our Region 3, and so Region 3 consists of 17 school divisions from Stafford County down to Matthews. When we meet with our legislators on legislative priorities, we continue to push for more in the school construction area. We keep our eyes on it whenever the grant comes out for that to see if we do qualify. Even though we've not been in the position yet to apply for anything, we've looked at the requirements. So far, we've not met that criteria, but we watch it when it comes out.
Wonderful. You're on top of the game. Let's go. Move along.
Wait a minute, I got a couple questions. Go ahead, Russ, you understand you. All right, this money that we're talking about, you basically can do anything you want to do with it under construction. Once we transfer the money over to 25, then you don't come back to the Board of Supervisors to do anything. You can do what you wanted because we had put it in the budget.
For school construction.
For school construction.
Regardless of what type of construction, whether it's a renovation, whether it's building a barn by there, or anything you want to do. Once we move the money over from our fund balance, and as long as you use it for what, construction or anything you want to do, and let's give an example, for instance. Let's say we want to do the renovation. Let's say we want to buy the house on the left, and we want to buy the house on the right. You don't have to come to the supervisors to ask them, do you want to buy it? You buy it, because you got the money in the balance. And this is a question, I might not be answering it right, but I'm asking like that. You can spend this money without coming to the supervisors and spend it. And the supervisors have nothing to say about it, and none of taxpayers and nobody else. Can you do that?
If it meets the parameters of what
Okay.
we signed
That's
off
what I'm
on
getting
that
at.
money.
That
If
is
it meets
what-
the parameters.
Okay, that's what I'm getting
It
at.
has to meet the parameters.
Yeah, it has to meet the parameters of that.
Well, basically,
Yeah.
the parameters on this money, because, for instance, you could took that money and add addition on to the middle school, you could expand just about anything you want to do, because I got a bad feeling about this one, okay? And I know I represent the county and the taxpayers, that's who I represent. I don't think that, I think we got to transfer the money over, not by option. But I do not like the option of saying we transfer it over and somebody else, not calling you or somebody else, make your mind up and do something different. Then I'm going to use the word weeds. Weed mean we get in the middle of something and we get too foolish, we don't change our mind about it. Now, what I'm saying, we can make a decision, go so far, and we scratch our heads and we don't went this far, so we're going to do this. I lack the grant, I lack the money because the state gave it to us for nothing. It's no match. But to me, this is a big sum of money if we put it into any individual one hand, once we move it from the county school budget, because once we budget, and it seemed like a thing over, and they said we budget for $100. Well, you know something? We spent the $100 and ain't nothing you can say, because we look at things because you budget. And I'm not talking about you all. I'm just talking about I see it, and I saw it at work happen. They budgeted. We don't trust that they will approve something else. Now we at a county level, and all I'm talking about the trust factor, and that's not a big word with me. I like honesty about the thing, because if you all have something in mind that you all want to do with this money, for instance, you already know. And if anybody on this board got something in their mind, or object or something they want to push, they already know. And I just don't like moving this money to have control of it like that. I really don't. And I'm just talking about this specific one. I don't. And if we move it to budget 25, this year now we in 24, 25, and it just said 25, so we talking about the latter or something. And for more information, let you know I see like this. There's a lot of things we talking about, debt coming off the county. You know, we look at it. And I'm just telling you from my standpoint, and maybe Matt can help me out a little bit on it. See, because I don't look at all this debt that we talking about coming off. This is why, okay? When debt come off, you don't put debt back on, all right? And how we accumulate money, which y'all know about, we accumulate money by raising taxes. I don't care how you fix it. That's what it ends up to when you make a decision. And I think that this kind of money and the plans that we have for it, because I think y'all got plans for something, then we need to do something that is more fair to the county and the taxpayers. And that's how I see it. And so I understand about capital layout, I understand about where the money's gonna be, but I do not like the idea of you don't have to come back to the supervisors to do anything when you spend X number of dollars on a building capital improvement idea. I could be having, I'm saying it wrong. I don't know, Matt, am I saying this wrong?
Well, let me see if I can kind of,
You know I'm not
you
changing
know,
my
I
mind.
serve on the high school renovation committee, and we're going to be talking about that in a moment anyway, but maybe I can kind of dial this in a little better. It's been our understanding throughout the budget processes in the years past, since the governor established, the Governor and General Assembly, got to give them credit too, established these construction funds for the counties, that the school wanted, the school system, the board, school board, and the staff at the school system wanted to hold these construction funds kind of in reserve and a fund balance for the renovation of the high school, because that's a big ticket item, no matter when we do it, whether we do it in that little debt service saddle that we have coming up in 2027, 2028, or not. It's a big item. So if that is going to be set aside by the school board for that purpose, then they're kind of telling you they're not going to do anything with it capital outlay wise until then. They're going to kind of set it aside. And parallel to what Reggie's asking about, I think, is it possible to invest those monies, or are we limited to the amount of interest we can get on it?
I spoke to Jay Sanudo and Paul Lee with the auditors,
Yeah.
and I asked, do I need to move this into, because if Dr. Seitz will read the language from the state of Virginia regarding carrying these funds over each year, and you can read that section if you'd like.
It says it will not, so at the end, so this kind of fell in our laps, literally, in
Right.
2022 from the governor. What I think it was there was additional federal COVID money,
Yep.
and that this
That was
is
it.
what the governor was trying to do is, you know, they had given a lot for education and things. They're hearing a lot of schools scream and yell about school construction and things, and so they just equally divided it throughout the Commonwealth.
Every division got $1 million, and then anything over $1 million was based on ADM.
ADM. And so that's how ours came out this way. So it said if it is not, let's see, must be carried on the books of the locality and local escrow accounts pursuant to the code to be appropriated to the school division for the same purposes listed above until all of the funding is expended. And so there's parameters where it gets.
And it's per code of Virginia.
Per code of Virginia. It's been on our books now for, I guess, 2 years. We're just, so if you don't move it, when the auditors come, they're going to say, why did you leave $1 million on last year's books and you didn't move it over to this
You got
year's
to carry it
books?
forward, but it
Yeah,
could-
you've got, this is just to move it on the books. I can stand here and tell you that we're not trying to pocket the money or put it somewhere and hide it from the Board of Supervisors. It's in the accounts, it's open, it's public
and-
information, and for years now, we've been talking about a high school renovation that we meet monthly about, and that's
and I
what
think
we
you.
looked at this money
And
as,
this is how we
yeah.
have to account for it.
Yeah, and I think you've said it the last couple budget years when we've been in our work sessions together, that y'all wanted to hold that in some kind of set-aside for the high school. And I guess if it's going to be in a set-aside, similar to how we do some of our set-aside accounts, they could actually invest those monies if there are no regulations against that. I know any interest they accrue of that money would have to go towards the project. So it'd have to meet the same stipulations as the money when they initially received it. But it may be that if the board's concerned about that, they just adopt something setting aside those funds for the high school renovation or some similar purpose yet to be determined, and invest those monies for a couple years, because we're going to be a couple years out doing it. And that may give you your assurances that you're looking for, Reggie.
No, the thing I'm saying is just what you just said.
Right.
You said that it's definitely for the renovation. So now what we're saying, I mean, you just said it.
Yeah,
You said
that's
it's
what
for
they've
the
said they
renovation.
were gonna
The
use it.
only that money can be used for the renovation. Then over here, I'm saying I can use it for anything I want to do. That's where I'm at. See, and I got a problem with it because what I'm hearing is not the same thing. What we're saying, we got $1 million and some dollars to renovate the high school. That's what we got. So you don't have a choice. You go ahead and do what you want to do. And I see it. I don't care what board you're on or what you're doing. You're saying that we got to use this money for renovation of the high school, and that's the only place that we can do it. See,
Well-
that's exactly what I'm saying.
I think what the school board has said heretofore, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, that they would like to use these monies to renovate the
man.
high school.
Man,
But if that, for whatever reason, doesn't
Man,
happen, they
see,
can
you're
use them
answering
for
for
any
them now.
construction they
Correct.
want.
What I'm saying is that, make your mind up. If you're gonna slap me in the face, slap me, all right? But don't sit there and say that we don't have all our intentions to do this. This renovation thing we've been talking about, how long have we been talking, Wayne? 18 years? When you did the other thing? Get some facts and let them come up on it. When the addition on the other side, they said it was gonna add another piece to the wing on the other side, about 15 years ago. Don't you think anything changes in 15 years that you'll have the same idea and can't really see the difference? Hey, I'm not fussing at y'all. I'm not saying nothing
We just
different.
need it moved over
passionate about the
to
money.
the current year
I just
is
told
all,
her, I don't
yeah.
care what we do with it, I just want it on my books.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to make sure that
I want it on
you
my
can't,
books.
you can't be taken
Yeah.
advantage of.
I can't,
That's all
I can't stand here today and tell you exactly what we're going to use it for. I can tell you, we plan to use it for a high school renovation. If that doesn't come to fruition, it will be used for something else that the schools need to help with construction,
School construction wise, that
Yes.
meets the requirement.
which
Yeah,
meets the
that's-
requirements that I have signed off on with the Virginia Department of Education.
So
And
you
that
can't,
little-
you can't use it to go out and buy like a fleet of cars.
No,
No, I mean, we have guidance
No.
for this.
yeah.
No, wait a minute.
And to accept it, I had to sign
Look,
off
I
on
don't
it.
want to get this thing out of whack, because I don't like that, for going and buy a fleet of cars. Don't play me like that. I'm talking about a school renovation or what else, your other options, okay? If you don't do the renovation, or you consider at all whether you want to build another school, let's make it real. Don't sit there, all you will sit there and say, well, Reggie talking about building a new school or renovation. Well, I can do what you want to do, but don't cheat the taxpayers out of what you got to do. I thought it was a time that Middlesex County thought about the kids, right? It's this kid thing. And the supervisors, y'all hate kids. Get used to it. Y'all hate kids. But I'm gonna flip the coin now, and you will hear from me. Y'all will hear from me later. Do what y'all want with the money and answer later, because you can't justify by jokes. And we're playing a mind game. And I just said that when I looked at it, to be honest with you, when I look at that in my report, first thing popped in my head is, oh my God. Just like that, now I shut the book up and didn't read nothing else. So that's how I see it, because, and that's how come I say over and over again, you talk about trusting and you talk about honesty. Then I ask you what the difference. I always tell you, show me where the money go. That's what I say.
In the little rules or regulations that you read there, it's something about has to be held by the school system or the municipality or something like that, or?
Let's see, funding, any of this funding that is unexpended by the school division as of June 30, 2023, because it came out in July 2022, and June 30, 2024, will not revert to the Commonwealth, but must be carried, because sometimes money goes back to the state if we don't use it
Right,
for certain
okay,
grants. So
okay,
this
okay.
is saying it's not going
Okay,
back
go
to the
ahead,
state.
finish.
Must be carried on the books of the locality in local escrow accounts pursuant to the Code of Virginia, to be appropriated to the school division for the same purposes listed
Okay.
above until all of the funding is
So it's saying that the
expended.
locality will hold the money, so why can't we?
You hold all the money.
Excuse me?
You have our money.
You have our, we don't have a separate
Right,
checking
so
account.
why can't we just,
You're just moving it over to the new year. That's
accounting
all this
system.
is to
General
say,
ledger.
All I'm
23,
saying
24
is-
books are closed, you need to put it on 24,
If-
25 books.
I'm with you,
That's all
I
this is.
understand that. But we can hold it in a bigger, you're talking about holding that on the books. You said that you're gonna, they talk to your accounting, and that they said that you're gonna see this again. It's just gonna roll on over. It's gonna roll on over until the opportunity comes or the decision is made how to spend it.
When I say roll over, we
It's
use
gonna appear
one-
again the next
We
year.
use one checking account, all of us. The county does. When I write a check at the school board office, it comes off of the main county account. When we're talking about year-end funds and rolling it over, all it is Anne Marie or Shanae here moving it on the green screen, the accounting system. It's already there.
Right.
We just need to see it in order to do a report.
Well, let me cut to the chase. If the county can hold the money, how come we don't hold the money and just keep it invested with our larger sum so we get a better rate? And then as you need it, we can appropriate to the school.
I have to report it every year to VDOE and on my annual school report, and so it has to be in these accounting codes.
The rules just said that the municipality
Yes.
could hold it.
On the books. And
So
as-
then
On the
so
books
we
to be
have it, so
appropriated.
we
To
can
be
build, so we can
appropriated.
invest it as we would see fit then?
Well,
think
yeah,
that's what
but
she
there's
asked
a
the
key
accountant about.
provision
That's
towards
what
the
I asked
end
him.
of that. Tracy, if you could reread it, I want to read the last part of that provision. You hold
To
it,
be
the locality
appropriated.
holds it and then
Yeah.
reappropriates
Will not
it.
revert to the Commonwealth, must be carried on the books of the locality
There you go.
in local escrow accounts pursuant to the code to be appropriated to the school division. And that's
To
what
be
Karen
appropriated
asked.
to the school division.
That's what
Now,
she-
they could invest it.
That's what I'm saying.
So why
But when I
wouldn't-
spoke to the accountant,
Yeah.
our accountant, our auditors, I asked him what to do with these funds at year end.
Uh-huh.
He said for us to appropriate it again each year into our fiscal year. That
It
was
just
the
seems like it'd
guidance
be
I
a
was
better investment option for the county to hold the money and invest it with this larger group. And as you need the money, we would appropriate it. Which is-
I'm only.
Yeah,
Well, it has to
I
be
don't
in a
disagree,
separate
I don't
escrow
disagree with
account that
that,
says
yeah.
in there.
telling you the guidance that
Yeah,
was given.
and the state's going to have their regulations, and I think it could be invested, it sounds like. So if we're not going to use it for a couple of years, we can look at some of those similar investment tools for the schools. I think they're eligible to use those, just like Tracy is downstairs. So we can look into that.
But
And
still
I
need-
think that would,
I still need to carry it on my books.
they still
Right.
carried on their books and appropriate to their books, yeah. And y'all could take some action, like the board, we've set up a set-aside account for the dredging fund, for instance. Y'all could do something like that for the construction fund, and then that would kind of allay some of Reggie's concerns, I guess.
I think I would recommend to the board to do that if we know that there's going to be a high
Yeah.
school
Yeah.
renovation, yeah.
Which we are going to be talking about setting up a joint work session with the board and school board, maybe after all these appropriations are done, since we've got Karen and Tracy here with us.
Let's move along, Dr. Sykes.
Okay, page 63. These are all grants. So the first one was the all-in grant that came to us in the fall of 2023. That was a total of $316,000. Again, it has specific requirements and parameters. It has to be used to implement the Virginia Literacy Act, closing student achievement gaps, and chronic absenteeism. And so the grant is good for 3 years. We used a portion last year, and we're still carrying over to be used for FY '25 and '26. And then school safety and security grant, something we apply for every year. It's finishing out the spending of that, and I think that was all that was in this one. So these are grants. Any questions about the grants?
Is there any match to these grants?
No.
The school security, not to the all-in, not to the all-in funds.
No, and not to that particular.
And not to
school
this
safety
particular school and
security
safety.
grant, no match.
Any questions on those?
Continue on, please.
Okay, page 64, you'll see the first is rebates and refunds. We had some funding that came from VDOE for teacher training. We've had some tuition. We have a teacher that's in a cohort with William and Mary. Richmond County's the fiscal agent, and so there's payments toward that the teacher pays. And we've had a refund from school specialties on school materials. And the miscellaneous revenue is actually the Sun Tribe SREC purchase payments. That applies to the original agreement with Sun Tribe, where the agreement with them and MCPS was to purchase 15 years of SREC production. SREC is Solar Renewable Energy Certificates, and it is paid quarterly for 5 years. This started in 2021, so every quarter since then, we've been coming to you for the appropriation of that amount.
That money comes into the county or into the school?
Comes into the schools and it goes towards our electrical expenses there.
So the Sun Tribe get X number of dollars, probably every quarterly that goes into the fund balance. It got to go into the county fund balance, but you separate it like it's toward the schools
It's
too.
delineated to the school.
To the
Yes,
schools.
sir.
That was the agreement was between Sun Tribe and Middlesex County Public Schools. And it goes to help offset electrical expenses.
Would it be easier for it to just come directly to the county and then you budget what your total electric bill and stuff would be throughout the year? To simplify your budget a little bit?
I think we have to build all of that into our budget.
We have to build it into our budget.
Yeah.
And again, I have to report all of the revenue to Virginia Department of Education every year. And it has to come into a certain account, and it has to come out of a certain account.
The county does the same revenue for the school as you have to do, don't it?
I'm sorry?
The county does the same numbers you doing, because if you're going into a general fund, we have one balance, then the money that you get are roughly, I guess, $5,000 or $6,000 from Sun Tribe. And that money goes into the fund balance. Then the county of the administration will see this money in their when they,
It comes in as an ACH wire, and I get a notification that the funds have come into the bank, and then the treasurer's office then code it to our miscellaneous revenue here, which is a state line, and then the offsetting expense line is electrical services.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And so the treasurer's office, they see that ACH come in, they've got notification from me that this is what it's for, and then they put it in the correct accounting codes for my reporting.
that's a lot of,
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of steps.
be honest, I don't know nobody else,
I'm not gonna lie to
but we're
you.
not keeping it simple.
Yeah.
We gotta have a simple way to do this.
Yeah, well, I will say school finance is not simple, unfortunately.
It's not, and we try to be as transparent as possible. That's why we do come to you guys to explain these, because a lot of the funding codes and the names on the funding codes come down from the state level. We don't make these up, and so they may not be as clear as you'd like to see them, but this is just the way that the state likes them to be reported. So that's why we come and give additional information for those.
Continue on, Dr. Sykes, please.
All right, page 65, these are all federal grants that we have finished out. Most of that we've finished out paying or that are carried over. The last three, you'll see the ESSER 3 grant was the largest one. That had to be expended by September 30 of this year. That's how we finished out the elementary school parking lot.
And praise Jesus, it's zero balance.
It is zero balance, and so we had to get
The last of our
that.
pandemic funds are over with.
Are at zero balance, which some school divisions, I think, across the country struggled with that, but Karen did an excellent job of getting that down to the penny. So this is just finishing out the remaining balances to go over, which have been spent at this
They've been
point.
spent.
They've been spent, they just need to go on to the new books. That's page 65 and 66. I'm going to roll into 67 because it's about the same thing. And so these are all, again, federal grants. or they're actually not grants. These are federal payments that we get each year, and each year we get an estimated amount when we're finalizing the budget in the spring, and then when the federal government moves into their fiscal year, we get the actual amounts. And so this just, again, this is the same time every year we come for this, we're asking you to move the correct actual amounts into those correct budget lines.
And we were off 13 cents in Title V, so if you could move that, I'd appreciate it.
I would say the levels that Karen has to go to on the financing side of things, especially when it comes to grants, it is multiple levels of approvals. I'm one of the sign-offs on it, but once it gets to the state level, it's multiple levels, and they scrutinize every line of every grant application, every line of everything that is spent from a grant application. If they've got one question about one word, they'll kick it back to us, and so that we can resubmit in those things. And so it's a lot of time that's spent on the finance department for school finance. And like Karen said, the annual school report that she does at the beginning of the year, that takes about 6 weeks or more for her to lock herself away to finish. All of this has to be accounted for in that. Our auditors go through not only our, what we're spending and our revenue, they go through payroll, they go through leave, they go through workman's compensation, all of those things get audited.
Back a page when you said SunTrust, it's miscellaneous revenue, which you get from them and you apply it to your electric bill.
Yes.
Is there any way you could provide the board with a list of all the revenue that the school system receives and kind of show us what's going on there? How many places do you receive revenue from? Who are they? What it is, so forth and so on? And you don't have to answer that right now, but.
No, I'm thinking
that
about how different that is from the budget that we work on. I mean, sometimes there is some miscellaneous, if we get a grant from River County's Foundation, that might come in as a miscellaneous 50,000. Those numbers are going to be extremely small. I don't want to spitball a number.
I guess we see it on the grand level with the appropriation resolution because the revenues show as federal, state, local sources of revenue. But I think what Bill's asking for is a little bit more specificity about, like, tuition funds, for instance.
There you go.
That was a question that came up a number of years ago, how much money we get in tuition funds from kids coming in from outside the county, things of that nature.
And then maybe there's some more there too, if you look a little.
That's broken down in the budget.
It is in the budget, yeah.
Well, if you could just break it out for us, the revenues, that's all. And there may be one or two more, or whatever, so we could
And
kind of just see it.
basically, what I'm doing here is taking those line items, and then if something comes in that's off what we had projected and what is on my green screen that I look at every day,
Right.
this is adjusting that green screen to match what I'm actually gonna get in the county's account. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Mhm.
It does, it does.
Yeah, so I can do that.
This may help a little bit too, and I'm hesitant to say it because I don't want it to be misinterpreted. But a lot of what the school does, a lot of the reason they account for things the way they do is because of federal state regulation. I mean, we can't oversimplify it for us the way we want to see it in Middlesex County, or may want to see it in Middlesex because there's state and federal regulations, that they want to see their level or their definition of transparency, which is a lot more complicated and probably just so. I'm killing that a little bit. But a lot of the reasons you account for these things the way you're doing comes from our auditors, and it comes from the state and the fed requirements.
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah. that's
So,
correct.
Lots of reporting,
yeah.
lots of reporting.
So we get the joy of running a school system, but we have a lot of oversight. And
And
that's
we
kind of
recognize
evolved to
also
be
that it's
that way
not-
over the years.
Even if you've worked in finance somewhere else, I mean, Karen came from banking, and it was a very different experience that she had to learn. So we recognize that, looking at it, it doesn't quite make sense to most anybody, even if you work in finance. But I would follow that and say that Karen and I are always
that's all right,
available
yeah.
to answer questions, explain, and go over any of these things. probably the largest supplement request that we asked for during the year, because, again, we're just moving the books over to make the books
It's
balanced.
usually every September, October-ish.
Right, that we come
Yeah.
over to do this, but we're always happy to meet ahead of time, even if it's not something on the books, to go over what that looks like.
And the reason there are so many at this time is because it took the county a bit to close.
Yep,
Mhm.
yep.
And so
Right.
we have to
Taking
get
longer to do it.
FY '24 closed in order for me to see what we have.
Wonderful.
Any other questions? Everybody good? Thank you, Dr. Sykes. Thank you, Ms. Murray, for being here today and answering questions.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
And we appreciate it, and
Thank
we'll try to take some action here.
All right, I'll make
It'd
that
be,
motion.
it'd be appropriate for us to do it as a whole. The approval of 1 through 7 under school matters, which is 2025-14 through 20. It would be a motion to approve that.
Yes, okay, yeah. I'll make that motion that.
Mr. Jesse has made the motion.
25, 14 to 20.
Wonderful. Second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Williams. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jesse,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Bill Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Crittenden,
Aye.
Mr. Don Harris.
Aye, motion's approved. Thank you, ladies.
You're welcome.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, while we have Karen and Dr. Sykes here, Ms. Murray and Dr. Sykes, one of the items I was going to bring up in the county administrator's report is an outcome of our high school renovation committee that we had this past month, and about the need and the timeliness of maybe having another joint work session with the Board of Supervisors and the school board. A couple of dates came to mind in that last committee meeting. I think it was the 25th of November and the 26th
I do
of
not have
November.
my notes in front of me.
No.
Do you-
Well, we
And,
talked about it. He's got
Somebody
his.
has an email.
Yeah.
and Mr.
Was that Monday?
That's
Administrator,
right,
I'd
Monday.
prefer us to discuss that in closed session,
Okay, very good.
if you don't mind.
Okay.
But I do have the dates, and we'll see where we go with that.
Okay.
But that is the intention, for us to have a joint session, if we can make it work for everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
And not to let you off the hook just yet, I heard you loud and clear, $369,000 coming back to the general fund.
Yes,
Commend you for
Or
that.
hasn't left the general.
right, yeah.
Commend you for that, because, yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. And y'all, I think y'all are doing an admirable job of keeping costs down and watching the pennies,
Thank
and the dimes are taking care of themselves, so thank you both for that. Just want to make sure that didn't get lost in the discussion. 'cause,
Right.
uh,
Yeah, thank you
I've
for
got a
that.
big old flag beside that one, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Walker.
Well, yeah, Matt, yeah.
Thank
Thank
y'all.
you.
Have a good day. All right. Okay, moving right along, we have social services report only from Rebecca Morgan.
And I think Ms. Morgan's going to be with us next month. I
That'd
think
be
she-
nice.
Yeah.
That's on pages 65 to 66. We do have, 68 and 71. Bay Aging Workforce Housing Updates, we have no report. Is Mr. Walker here?
Mr. Alan Walker is here.
Sir, would you come forward, please?
Sir. Good afternoon, everybody. I appreciate you having me here. I'll try to keep this as short as possible since I know it's late. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Alan Walker. I'm Assistant Director of Multifamily Housing Development at Bay Aging. This project is the residences at Raleigh Park. It's a 24-unit workforce housing rental project located in Middlesex County, Virginia, obviously, because we're in Middlesex. The project consists of two 12-unit, two-story buildings. All the units are two-bedroom, two-bathroom, designed to serve households at or below 150% area median income. 5 of those units will be set at 80% AMI.
Mr. Walker,
Yeah.
just to be clear.
Sure.
We're talking about the property at Cook's Corner.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Behind the administrative building.
Yes,
Is
that
what
that
we're
would
talking
be it.
about.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I get so caught up, I do.
Yeah, just want to make sure if anybody's listening or
Yeah.
goes back and listen, what property we're exactly talking about.
Sure.
Continue, sir.
Yeah. So Updates as far as the project goes, the plans are just about finished. We had to revise the development plans and the site plans to reflect the current Virginia housing minimum design standards. We also needed to change them to reflect the new infrastructure that's been put in place, which is the sewer and the water. And then those things, they just take time to get them all done. So they're just about finished. I spoke to our surveying engineer this morning. Should be sometime soon, I would think either the end of this week or next week. Then after that, when the plans are completed, I'm going to send the plans out to our construction company to get a final bid. So a final bid on the project, I've talked with them off and on throughout the last year or so. An approximate bid right now is $5.9 million for complete site work. That's everything being done. And that's as of August. The last bid that we had, which was done October of 2022, was 5.6. So you can see that these things increase. They just keep increasing, and then nothing ever gets cheaper. But we've worked with our survey and engineer to do every value engineering option humanly possible. And when I mean value engineering, I mean not cutting corners, but removing things that are not needed, trying to make this building as cheap as possible, but still keep the integrity of what we're doing. Let's see. I have spoken in the past, 'cause I know that I'm sure some of you are going to be wondering why, if I have rebid this project. I have spoken to 2 contracting companies this year regarding the approximate price we have from our construction company now. Both of them said that the construction bid that we have right now, they could not build what we want any cheaper. And that's the same information I got the year before when I reached out to 2 completely different contracting companies, and they said the same thing. Getting a new bid is just it's a lot of time on the construction company's side. Without having all of the money together to build the project, I just didn't see where it was beneficial for us to make them spend the time to do it. They're using local subs for everything. So, trying to keep that in mind, I'm trying to be as, time sensitive as I can. These people, they're doing a lot for us. Let's see. I want to go over a little bit what we have secured as far as funding. We have $250,000 from Virginia Housing and a community impact grant. That's as of May 7th of 2019. September 1st of 2023, we have $1,960,000 from Virginia Housing in REACH funding, which is Resources Enabling Affordable Community Housing. That's a loan. As of November 6, 2023, we have $250,000 that we received from the Jesse Ball DuPont Fund. And as of June 24, we have $500,000 from River County's Community Foundation grant. It's very generous of them. They're very good to this community and their outside communities, but let's see. We have other non-secured funding, which are things that I've applied for that we don't have an award for yet. But one of those I just finished, which is Department of Housing and Development, Affordable and Special Needs Housing. That's up to $2 million. That's up to their discretion, but that's what it's up to. We're working with multiple conventional lenders for possible loan solutions to fill the gap. So that would be banks like Locust, which used to be VCC, Citizens and Farmers Bank, stuff like that. There are other options for trying to bring the cost down a little bit more through SURCAP, which they do utility funding for materials and labor. Let's see. And that is about it. I know that's very boring and plain.
I didn't, my brain gets tired, and I didn't write it down.
Yeah.
But, so at this point, you feel pretty secured about your funding for the project?
No, I mean, there's still a pretty substantial gap. I mean, secured funding, right now, cash in hand is $2,960,000. That's what I have committed right now.
Okay,
So we still have a pretty substantial gap.
okay.
So, I mean, it is an ongoing process that excludes all of the things that I put in here for non-secured, because that's not money that I have.
Okay, let me ask a better question then.
Yes, you can donate.
Because we've been, we've been waiting, I mean, you know, it's been a couple years now. How closer do you think you to the project than we were, particularly when you bid it in '22?
So in 2022, all right, so I'll back it up a little bit. We are now $750,000 closer than we were before. And I know that doesn't help the situation. It's not answering your question, but all of the grants that we apply for are competitive. They're extremely competitive grants.
Okay.
That being said, we've made a lot of headway with local foundations. We've made a lot of headway with the pro forma, which would be the rents, which would be the construction, the layout that is basically the Bible of the construction bid, of how we're going to get all this done. We've made a lot of headway with that. Interest rates have made a huge, they have changed a lot since 2022, which makes it more favorable for banks or lending organizations like Locus, like CNF Bank, like all of these other institutions that we're working with to try to find gap funding.
Right.
So I know it doesn't seem like it, I guess, when I say things like we're $750,000 closer, but the reality of it is that financially, as far as interest rates and banks and the way money is opened up, we actually are closer.
Good.
So how would the monies be received to make payments on the money we borrowed?
It would come out of any debt service we have built into the pro forma, so it would just come out of the operating fund.
County put money then for this project?
I mean, you know, it's nice that you bring that up.
He's the art of segue.
Yeah, it's so smooth. There has been an opportunity that's come up in the last couple of months from Virginia Housing. It is specifically for municipal funding. They will match up to $3 million as long as the funding that comes from would be municipalities. So if you find it in your hearts.
One thing I think you and me might have spoke on it before briefly is this project's been looked at for a few years now, as I think we've heard. Since that time, that whole area has been turned into an historical site. And the people that put all the legwork and everything to get that done and accomplish that, have they had an opportunity to look and see what is being built on that property architecturally wise? I know they know what it is, but to look and see how it blends with the area now that it's been designated as an historical site.
When was it designated as a historical site? I know that we talked about it briefly.
Yeah,
Somebody had talked about
It was briefly, yes.
wanting to do
About
it.
a year ago, I'm thinking, year and a
Yeah.
half.
Somebody,
Yeah, it's selective what's historical and what isn't on that
yeah.
piece of property.
What Mr. Harris is talking about is, we were at a Middlesex Foundation meeting, and we were talking about the pros and cons of possibly turning that area into a historical area and what that would mean funding-wise. As far as I know, that has not been done. The other Mr. Harris, he is correct. It is the building itself.
I still think, being good neighbors, that they might like to look at what's getting ready to be built right beside them.
Of course, I would be happy to reach out to them or to anybody else to show
Could
them what
anyone
we
get
have
a
planned.
list of who was on that committee that did all the work to get that on?
I want to thank Henry Easton serves on the Middlesex Foundation, and I think there's an overlap. Henry, I believe, was on the Heritage Committee too, is he not, Reggie? Wayne? Yeah.
I was on the Heritage Committee too.
Out of
'Cause
respect,
a lot
I
of
think
things
that'd
have
be a
been
good
going
thing
on
to
back
do.
there.
Yeah.
The Heritage Committee are aware of what's going on.
Have they seen a drawing or anything of it?
But now, see, this has been a while.
Right.
Because it started out with Miss Patricia Satterfield, and also Louis Briggs, he was on the committee too. But it's been going on a long time, but far as I know, I will check out again to find out.
I would think y'all would
about
want, the group, I would think, would want to look at a conceptual drawing of what looked like it's going there. It may be just a thing, as a couple screws being tightened or whatever you want to put it.
And you know what, I agree with that. I think that's a great idea. And the fact that the plans are almost finished, and when they come in, that would be a great time to sit down again and just look at the conceptual plans, but then also the actual plans and talk about it. I think that's a great idea. I'm open to that.
Thank you.
Well, we haven't had anything to talk about for a couple years, right? I mean, conceptually, we have, but nothing else. So I think we're getting closer to that time frame, maybe that could happen, for sure.
Yeah, I 100%, I agree. I'd be happy to do any of that for the board. If you guys would be interested in seeing that, we could do it all together. However you want to do it.
I've seen over the years, because it's been going on so long, renditions of that.
Yeah.
Do you still have some of those?
Yeah, I have,
All right.
yes,
I'd like to
I
get
do.
some to, and then I can present it, let them see it.
Yeah,
And then you can have a meeting together with them.
of course, I
All
can
right?
do that. We
With-
have,
With that committee.
yeah, we have big storyboard, I have big boards that show
Right,
conceptual plans.
I remember seeing
and-
it, but over the years, like I say. it's been
Yeah,
going on about
visualizing the
4
site
to 5
plan now.
years,
Yeah.
Thank you, Wayne.
There were
Thank
2 units being built with 24 units total, 12 units in each, and expandable up for another 12 units to make
Yeah.
it 36 total on the site. And when we were designing the Heritage Trail, we designed one of the loops in Phase 2 to come out in between one of the new buildings as it was proposed. And a lot of that design, I would say, was built kind of around a similar concept of Mercer Place over in Lancaster County,
It was.
Yeah.
That's what started all of this in the first place. was
about
that-
18 years ago, Bill.
Yeah. The original setup for this was to try to replicate what Mercer Place had done in Kilmarnock. So a lot of the buildings, if anyone has ever been out to Mercer Place, this will look very familiar to you.
I've seen it.
Mercer Place is one of my favorite locations for Bay Aging. It's great. The atmosphere is good, and that's what we want to replicate in Middlesex.
Y'all are operating Mercer Place now, right?
Yes, yes, we own Mercer Place now. I know that's not very sexy. I'm sorry. Anybody got any questions?
Y'all also own a couple other places too.
Yeah, just a few, like 11.
And because I asked one time before, because it seemed like it was a hard time to get the money together. And I asked, did y'all take partnership and investment? And I think you said no. So y'all had to raise the money another kind of way, so anything you make from it will go back into, you said debt service a few
Yeah.
minutes ago. And that's why it's taking so long, because you're not allowing anybody else to come in and invest in, because at the end of the day, they gotta get some of the profit. So when they get some of the profit, I guess y'all don't want that. That's the way it's set up.
I mean, we're a
other gentlemen-
nonprofit, so that kind of goes against
Well,
the
it's some,
name.
well, it might be against what we think we're against. Anyway, it's some things that invest in and they get something, that's what I was told. So I was just, just wondering, was it still that way for somebody to invest in? And,
I mean, we're always open to partnerships. I appreciate asking the question. That is well above my pay grade, Mr.
Yeah, I
Riley.
think there was another gentleman that was answering the question. Didn't
Yeah,
want to do
Josh,
that.
who wanted to be here, Mr. Jamerick, who was my
Yeah, He
boss.
said you couldn't do that because y'all was a lot closer at getting the amount of money at that particular time, because the building costs a whole lot less money than where we at now.
Yeah.
So it's probably done doubled now, so.
Yeah, the original bid for the building, I want to say was close to $4 million. And that's when the Middlesex Foundation still had control of it. That's when they were going to do the original plan of having the commercial aspect of it. And just from COVID and just the price of everything exploding, it has gone up $2 million. And that's with me breaking everything down and making it cheaper.
And it failed because they didn't have water pressure to build it. It failed the whole project.
I don't have any words for
No,
that.
you don't have anything but that, right?
I don't have anything
Okay.
to say about that.
Said it didn't meet the safety aspect, and that was a reason for them to fail the whole project.
Well, I mean, the buildings, that's one of the reasons why we had to have the plans redone, is because now that we do have water and sewer infrastructure, a lot of the things that they were going to implement in the original plans, as far as a pressurized tank for the sprinklers and all of that stuff, is now not needed. And so we have to remove all of that stuff from the plans to bring them up to date now.
Any other questions for Mr. Walker? Thank you for giving us an update.
Of course. And all I ask is that you possibly think about maybe making an investment. That
We
I
think
can
about
then
a lot
turn
of
around.
things up here.
Oh, don't do me
Actually.
like that, Don.
You may be seeing him back in front of you come budget time, Mr. Chairman.
No, I think we're all on the same team, and we're all on the same page. We want to get this done. And
We
if I
do.
can find money from somebody else, and if I got to get it from here to get it, then I'm going to do everything I can to try to get it built. And if
Wonderful.
this is one of those things, the least I can do is ask.
Yes, sir.
Worst case scenario, you say no, which is fine.
I'd be disappointed if you didn't ask.
I'm glad you feel that way, because I almost didn't watch it, and
Now, the
everybody beat up
decision
on
after
Ben,
that
and
might be
everybody
something
else.
different.
I was like, Ben can't even get 40 grand. I'm not going to come up here and talk about any money. But thank you. I appreciate it. If anybody needs
Wonderful.
me, you got all of my contact information. Please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Appreciate it. Okay, I think we got Kirk Smith with the MPPDC Planning Department. How are you?
Well,
Nice to see you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. This evening, we are...
Give your name, if you would, please.
My name's Kurt Smith. I'm the Deputy Director of the
That's for our record. Thank you.
Middle Peninsula PDC. We are bringing a request to the board for action on a resolution which is included in your packet pertaining to the, Broad Creek dredging project. That begins on page 72 of your packet. And the resolution is a requisite to satisfy the terms and conditions of the PDC's grant from the DCR Flood Fund to help supplement and support the county's dredging activities at Broad Creek. The resolution lays out the description of that. It states that those terms and conditions in the flood fund grant require that the grant funding be used for dredging activities that will result in nature-based solutions regarding flood protection. And further down in the resolution, it states that the general idea is that once the dredge material is placed into the disposal area, in the future, should that material be removed, DCR wants certainty that the material will be used for nature-based flood protection solutions. So think along the lines of living shorelines for the coarse sands that will come out of the channel, things of that nature. So this resolution represents that certainty that when we spend these funds, at the end of the day, some point in the future, if they ever leave that disposal area, they will be used in that manner. The grant funds available to the county are reimbursable up to $336,000. So if the board agrees to approve the execution of this resolution, we can move forward with the project with these funds to be used to support the project. If without this resolution, it will jeopardize the ability to use those grant funds.
And Mr. Chairman, I'll add to that with a little bit of history. The last time we dredged Broad Creek, we had the idea that the spoils were going to be, valuable product, and they are. We put them out to bid. I think the high bid won the spoils on the site, which was, I think, bid out at like 72,000 cubic yards or something like that, if my memory serves. It was 2013, 2014 when we did it. I think the high bid was $10. And then the contractor refused to come get it and wouldn't sign the contract that he had to have it removed in a certain period of time. So years went by, the board reconsidered it and actually surplused the dredge spoils sands and allowed local contractors to go in there and harvest the sand to use for their beneficial reuse projects. A lot of it was beneficially reused right over in Lancaster County. You can see them from the bridge. So this resolution basically just memorializes what the board did in the past with those sands by allowing the contractors to come in there and use them for those type of living shoreline projects, beach projects, things of that nature. And with some of the projects that we're looking at, we'll probably be one of the people beneficially reusing those sands. So.
Can we make sure, if we have a citizen in the area that wants to utilize some of the sand, can we put them at the top of the list?
You could. It's going to be staff's recommendation. I think several board members have talked to Anne Marie about this off and on, that we hold off on doing that until we know for sure we don't need them for some of our projects. But if we didn't need all of it, that's exactly what we did, except we made the citizen go through a contractor that was experienced to make sure that No damage was done to the dewatering devices and the berms that are down there. Yeah. So, I mean, in a sense, that was done, Bill, when we surplused it. We allowed several contractors to go in there and harvest what they needed for citizen projects.
And we have adequate space for the dredging to go to our spoil site.
Yes, yes, we do. One of the things I'm going to talk about in my report is a little update on the dredge.
Okay?
Yep.
Any other further questions for Mr. Smith? If not, a motion would be in order for approving 2024-011.
When are we gonna get the creek dredge?
Excellent question.
Get right to it.
The VMRC board approved the permit application during their meeting at the beginning of last week. We're now waiting on staff to process the actual permit and deliver it to the county. And at that point, we anticipate that there will be some terms and conditions tied to that permit along the lines of seasonal restrictions for any clearing work in the disposal area related to threatened and endangered bats, certain species of bats, but that should not go into effect until, that window will be May 15th through July 31st, when you won't be able to work in the disposal area. So it should not hold up the project from happening this winter.
It would appear that you were pretty spot on, and when we originally talked about this months ago of what your target date was, of course, everybody wanted to light a fire and do it as quickly as possible, but as it turns out, it looks like you were pretty accurate on that.
I appreciate that fact checking. Yes.
Yeah, well, hey.
We tried.
It is,
As
yes, you
fast as we
did,
could
you did.
Make
but-
it work through the system, so
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah, wonderful. All right,
Mr. Chairman, I move that Resolution 2024-011 be approved.
motion made by Randy Crittenden. Second would be necessary to continue.
Second?
Second by Bill Harris. Any further discussion? Roll call on the motion, please.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Bill Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Crittenden,
Yes.
Mr. Jesse,
Aye.
Mr. Don Harris.
Yes, motion's approved. Thank you, Kurt, for being here today. Appreciate everything you're doing for the county, and keep up the good work.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Take care.
All righty. Airport update. What? Oh, sorry. I just figured we did all that at one time. What's next? DCR floodplain support letter?
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. Louis Lawrence, I'm the Executive Director for the Middle Peninsula PDC, and actually, item F and G are topically related. F sets the stage for really why we need to go into G. And that's what we want to walk you all through first. So this is just a generic regional letter of support that the PDC puts into play to access federal and state money, which provide programs and services to your constituents. This strategy of regionalizing, going after money for problems that our constituents are dealing with all over the Middle Peninsula has worked extremely well. It has worked so well that since 2020, utilizing this Fight the Flood program structure, this type of regionalization has resulted in us driving over $44 million back into the local economy that our local contractors are able to access and your homeowners are able to utilize to protect your tax base. So much of what we do at the PDC is intended on developing this kind of circular economy that identifies the problem, we find the solutions in the business community, and then we go after the grant money to solve the problem. The grant money feeds your local economic development business system. You don't need to action this, but what I want to talk about with the second part of this is the complications that being really successful cause, and what we need to do to be able to make sure that we can turn government money over more efficiently. So I don't really have much to say about the support letter, other than every county gets them, they all sign off on them, they go into every application that we submit, and it makes our applications coming out of the Middle Peninsula score better at the state and regional level because we're able to speak with a greater voice. We have 9 jurisdictions saying the exact same thing than 1 jurisdiction saying it. So, any questions on that letter or that approach before we really get into the nuts and bolts of the second part of the conversation?
Is there board board action to approve Matt signing that letter?
Do we need a motion for that?
I would like one, please.
You'd like a motion?
Yes, please.
Mr. Jesse?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Mr. Jesse.
A second.
In support of the letter, and a second by Mr. Crittenden. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Bill Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Crittenden,
Yes.
Mr. Jesse,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Don Harris.
Yes. Motion for support of the letter that Mr. Lawrence is going to take care of is approved. You still have the podium, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay, so let's get now to the more complicated aspect of doing this regional work and some things that we need from you all. So for those that are on the board that are relatively new, I'll give you a little bit of history. You need to go backwards, pull it forward. PDCs were born in 1968 out of the Regional Cooperation Act. So we are nested under 15.2, which is your powers as local government. That allows us to do things that are a little bit different than a lot of your other external entities that you all fund. That's why we oftentimes will say we're not an external entity. We are you. We are your local government problem-solving consultants. And so we develop programs and services to solve whatever problems that you all have at your level or that your constituents are struggling with at the exact same time. So with one of the problems that we continually deal with right now is you heard the last 4 speakers get up and talk about grant programs, grant programs, grant programs. The most complicated part out of all of that is turning the money over. It's easy in our space to get the money. It's extremely hard to turn it over. When I say turn the money over, that means that it's all reimbursement based. Somebody else has to spend the money first. So just today, talking with Mr. Matt Walker, we've got a project in Urbana. A homeowner there is getting a $500,000 grant from us to put in a living shoreline. That is a significant grant that's going to private citizens. Actually, we've got about $1.6 million that we've been doling out on the Rappahannock. That $500,000 grant is on par with my entire agency unrestricted general fund balance. So meaning I've got to turn over all the commission's normal bills, just like you all do here, with $400,000 to $600,000, and I got one project that's $500,000. So the math puzzle is extremely complicated on our part. I've been watching our commission budget grow over the last probably 6 years from around $500,000 to $600,000 to this year it's pushing $12 million. The unrestricted general fund balance did not increase by that. So we're trained to see into the future. So I started working with the General Assembly probably 4 years ago saying, I need more tools in the toolbox. I can't get the people's work done if I can't turn federal and state money over. Most of the federal and state funders are never responsible for having to turn money over in the government system. They're only responsible for receiving the paperwork that comes in with it. So the financial puzzle that we have been struggling with is how do I do this? How do I structure the ability to turn more money over than what, in some instances, we've got in the general fund, or in some years, more than what the previous year's approved agency budget is. So VRA, which you all interface with frequently, we've worked with VRA for the last probably 20 years, developing new loan programs so that citizens can access septic repair money, they can access living shoreline loan money. What I've been saying to them is they are doing a disservice to regional units of government that do not have taxing powers. So I don't have the ability to generate. The only thing that I can do is move the money that I have on my books or convince state agencies to create new financial products. And that's what we have said to VRA. We need to have new financial products that both can provide short-term lending to local government and can provide short-term lending to PDCs. And when I'm talking short-term, I mean short-term, like 30 to 45 days, because that's what I need to be able to do to prime the pump When a $500,000 invoice comes in from a marine contractor, I've got to pay the bill. The contractor doesn't want to sit and listen to, well, I got to wait till the state sends my money back, and that may be 30 to 60 days. They need to be paid, and they need to turn the money over so they can go to their next job. So VRA listened to that problem, which was outstanding. So they created a new revolving credit facilities program that both PDCs and local governments can access if you have short-term lending needs. So you can get up to $500,000. So we applied to VRA after we updated my commission to say VRA listened. They developed, went to their board, developed this new credit facility. So we applied for up to $500,000 to ensure that cash flow is in hand to be able to turn the money over in 30-day increments as the bills come in, as I'm waiting for state agencies to send us the money back to offset it. Commission said, absolutely, go do this, get the tools that you need. So we applied for VRA. That agreement is in your packet that I think Matt included in there with that. So that's been approved. VRA, as they're working through the mechanics of how to do this, they have 4 financial backstops, which are important for you all to understand before I ask you to take the action that you're going to ask. The first financial backstop is the actual grant agreement that the revolving line of credit is backstopped by. So if we happen to have a $500,000 septic repair grant from DEQ, and I know coming up that I'm not going to have $500,000 to be able to turn that money over when constituents come in to access that money, I will pledge the line of credit against that grant agreement. And that effectively means that the revenue that comes in from that agreement goes immediately to VRA to pay off the line of credit for 30 days. So there's no financial risk that's there. It's a wash the money in, wash the money out, it's paid off. The ledger is wiped clean. That line of credit then continues to sit on the books if and when we need it for the next project. And again, the first line of defense would be the grant agreement. So most communities, as we've been talking with them, and county administrators will say, well, what's the risk? How likely is it that you all are not going to be reimbursed for grant agreements? So I went back, pulled the audits for the last 9 years. We had over 220 grants that were closed that went over $10 million. Every single penny of that has been recouped. So the default rate on grant agreements that we sign is 0%. Now, whether or not, can I tell you what happens in the future? I cannot, but what I can tell you looking backwards is we do not default on any grant agreements. All of that money is realized, all of the money is brought into hand. So that is there. You know, we know that that's not going to happen. If something was to go crazy and we had an issue, the unrestricted general fund cash balance of the commission would move into that second position. So I carry on the commission books anywhere between $400,000 to $600,000 unrestricted general fund money. More than enough to cover the pledge of the line of credit if something was to happen in the short term and the money didn't show up. The third line, which is what VRA is asking all local governments in the Middle Peninsula to do, is to make a moral obligation pledge. And as Mr. Williams at the commission meeting said, oh, you need us to be a co-signer. And I said, yes, if that is the easiest way to describe it, we need for you all to co-sign and financial backstop the work of the commission, which delivers the programs and services to your constituents that are the beneficiaries of the investment at the end of the day. And then VRA uses the fourth financial backstop. If you don't think that 1, 2, and 3 are enough, they use the state interceptor program, which means they will just reach into any grant program that's out there when that money is supposed to be funneled. They will just take the money to pay the debt service back. I've never heard of VRA even having to even get close to ever using state interceptor. But I suspect that that often also shows up when you all have financing agreements with VRA. The state interceptor program is contained inside of that as well. Okay, so then I got a couple other things that I want to talk about, and then we can talk about the action at hand. So you all, let me move to first to what will this line of credit, can we use it for? So anytime that you access VRA funding, 62.1-199, which is the VRA code, defines what the line of credit can be used for. They are very specific, but it is very broad. We can use this money for any grants that we have, and when I run down through this list, you're going to go, well, that's all the stuff that the PDC does. Absolutely. That's the nexus between why we need it. water supplies and wells, septic systems, solid waste, stormwater, roads, building, broadband, law enforcement, emergency response, fire and rescue, land conservation, parks and recreation, dredging, site acquisition, and housing. And there are a couple other subset areas that are there. But if you all were to take a look at the commission's work program, that is really the framework of the work that we are in. We've amended this statute a couple different times to add topical areas where we know there is going to be need for VRA financing, of which Kurt just talked about earlier, dredging. It is one of the most expensive cost structures that local government needs to fund. So I will diversify financial risk at the state level whenever I can. I will drop things into state code, working with our delegate, to make sure that you all have more financial products that are available if and when you need those products. Hopefully you don't need them, but if you do, I've already built in the ability for you to go to VRA to help cash flow or finance dredging projects, as an example. Septic systems, which we have been funding septic systems in the Middle Peninsula since 1996. This statute was amended to allow septic systems to go in. Same thing with living shorelines. We operate the only revolving loan programs for living shorelines and septic systems right now. All of that is financed by VRA. The majority of that happens because we changed the code to make sure that we've got access to financial products to create programs that your constituents can access when they have the need. Okay, so that talks about that. The VRA agreement, I think, is in your packet. That's the nuts and bolts that talk a little bit about the revolving credit facility, $500,000 for renewed annually. Each year we have to go back to VRA. It's in perpetuity line of credit, but they want us to renew it every single year, or we get to say, nope, don't need it anymore. Provide short-term financing for eligible projects, in this case, 30 to 45 days, just long enough to turn it over. What the eligible project costs, those are the ones that I defined out of 62.1199. The interest rate is 2% on the money that we get from them. Security interest are those 4 items that we laid out. Disbursements will come to the PDC within 7 days. That's the critical component. That is where the system, where we're trying to develop the tool, is so that when the bills come in from local contractors, I can say to the contractors with an extremely high level of assurity, you're going to get your money within 10 days. 7 days for VRA to release it, 2 days for us to process it and write the check. And then you're paid off in full. We then take that invoice, request reimbursement. That moves into the state system. The state uses the Prompt Pay Act. Generally speaking, we are reimbursed within 30 to 45 days, but not always. Sometimes the state is very inefficient with how they process paperwork. Sometimes 30 days becomes 60. And you heard several other speakers talk earlier about they're looking for any word possible on those reinvestment forms to reject it, to go back, to stretch it out. Because, as Mr. Harris talked about, the longer that money sits in the account at the state level, the more interest they draw off of it. So they're looking for any reason to stretch it out as long as possible. I'm looking to get it out of their system as quickly as possible. So we're always playing this cat and mouse game about what's reasonable and what's not reasonable inside of that reimbursement space. This tool helps us to ensure that the business owners are not at a disadvantage while they're waiting on the state to figure out how to turn the money over when my general fund cannot turn that money over. Okay, then you've got the support agreement that's here. Matt had made a couple recommendations. It is not filled out because we do not know what the true coalition of the willing will look like. I'm either going to have to go back and do 8 of these talks for the other 8 jurisdictions, or some of them will say, no, we'll handle it ourselves. You all are the first that we're coming to here because Matt was first available for the first board meeting, so that's why I'm here with you all first. What Matt's recommendation, and Matt, if I butcher it, please jump in.
You go right ahead.
Help me with this. You've got a couple recommendations in here for how you may want to structure this. If 6 counties and 3 towns participate, then that's one option. You know, you're saying you will sign if all 9 do it. We anticipate all 9 will do it, but sometimes some jurisdictions aren't ready to action that. So what happens if they don't action it? This is where it gets even more complicated, because the commission is going to have a really tough conversation around how do we provide programs and services to your constituents if we do not have access to the resources to turn the money over. So there's an action and a reaction here by not participating with it. And that is something that we do not want to do. We do not want to punish citizens for not being able to access state and federal money that they've got a right to access to. So that's why the first option in here is to say all 6 counties and 3 towns participate. But I like Matt's second option because it does recognize timing is important with this. So the second option that Matt had was to say Middlesex will agree to this if at least 3 other counties and 1 town participate. We don't know what that final matrix is going to look like. So as 1 county or 3 counties or 5 counties, it changes the moral obligation pledge level. So I'll give you a couple examples of that. And again, this is not cash to us. This becomes a footnote in your audit because it's a moral obligation. If all 6 counties and 3 towns agree to sign on, your pro rata obligation or the moral obligation pledge is $71,428.57. And that's what it means if the entire world comes to an end. We spent all the money, the commission doesn't have any money left, the grant agreement said they're not going to pay anything. That would be your financial risk at the end of the day if the world came to an end with it. The town's risk would be $23,809. That's a 100% participation on it. And it goes from all different ratios depending on who all is in or who all is out. 1 county could cover the entire moral obligation with it and say, nope, we're going to cover it all for you. I'd say, thank you very much, glad to do that. Your financial risk there would be the full $500,000 if something unfavorably was to happen. But I would not recommend that because it's not in your interest to do that because everything that we do at the PDC is regionally shared. You share a proportional share in the risk and you share proportionally in the reward at the end of the day. So once we know what the final coalition of the willing will look like, then we'll be able to fill the document in somewhere between 71,000 and if only 3 counties did it because it was easier than proportionalizing it out, that'd be 166,000. So that's kind of the bucket ends of the financial range that you all would be agreeing to co-sign on so that we can make sure that we continue to get the people's work done. No other PDC in the state has this. We are the first PDC that's ever tried this. We're the first that made the biggest push for it. VRA responded. And sometimes the first unit of government through the wall is the one that has the hardest lift. And that's what we're doing here. You know, we are creating tools that are very much needed. And while other communities spin around in circles, we're getting the people's work done. And we're getting it done efficiently and effectively. And so I need some help from you all to make sure that we can continue to get that work done. I'd be glad to take any questions.
What would we be on the hook for on number 2? I see you gave us 71,000 for number 1 and 167,000 for number 3.
Yeah, and it could be if you had 4 counties, and it's proportionally, or 3 counties. Depending on the number of counties that are in or the number of towns, the fewer people that get in, the bigger your number gets.
So all towns are 23,000 and all counties are 71 now?
Yes, sir. Assuming that all 9 go in, that's correct.
Okay.
And that's the way, that's the way our due structure works. That's the way we structure it for regional grants when we've got like the hazard mitigation plan. We structure it that way where the 3 county shares, if you add all 3 of those up, it equals 1 county.
And the third option basically just gives you a fill-in-the-blank number where you could cap your moral
that's true. Thank you,
obligation. I will say this, Wayne and Reggie and I were at the commission meeting when this was discussed, and Louis did a spot-on job outlining this. I hope you don't have to do that 8 other times.
Well, I've done it before.
Well, I know you
It's just the people's
have.
work. I'm happy to
I
do it.
think where the counties were around the table that night was they wanted to see how many counties signed on with a coalition of willing. And then before they put a lot of detail and fill in a lot of these blanks, find out who's going to do it. We feel like all of us are going to do it, but you never know. It has happened in the past, not to name any 1 or 2 counties particularly. They've decided not to do certain things. So what we're asking the board for tonight is to be the first. Other counties are going to look to us to see what we do, and Gloucester's on board, Middlesex is on board, so we're on board too, because more of us that come on board with the coalition willing, the lower the moral obligation is for all of us. And one of the other things that I think we struggle with at the commission is not all of our towns are equal.
That's correct.
I mean, you got West Point and Tappahannock, And then we got Urbana, not to disparage Urbana, but Urbana is a lot smaller
And that-
than those two other
that's-
towns.
Yeah, and that's.
So we always try to create some flexibility for them.
And in years past, for some of these regional projects,
Right.
you all have just agreed to cover the share for Urbana because
We
of the
have.
disproportionality of just having 800 people there.
They're just a smaller town with a much smaller budget than West Point's.
What happens if we would approve, number one, option number one, and next thing you know, you only had 7 that agreed to it?
So what
Would you
would
have the
happen with that?
opportunity to come back?
I would have to come back to you all and we would just say, hey, look, got 7, didn't get 9. You know, it's still a good deal. You know, we got close. I'll probably get the other ones later. But yeah, it's not all or none. We're hoping to be able to do it one time. You know, get the structure done correctly the first time and then we don't have to come back. But I'll come back as many times as needed because we've got to get, if I can't turn the money over, we can't do the people's work.
What's your, yours and staff's recommendation of what you think option 1 or option 2 we should go with?
I think option 1 is stronger because it sends that consistent message that we're all in and we want to move forward with it. You could include a motion to say you're going to go with 1, and if we don't get that, then you fall back to 2. So you cover both of them at the exact same time, or I can come back.
Or you can come back.
Or I can come back,
If
whatever works.
everybody doesn't get on board,
Find out who the
then you got to
coalition
come
woman
back
is.
and we got to talk about a second option.
That's correct. That's
What-
correct. And I
what
don't
we
have a
would-
financial crunch, which is the first thing to understand. Because of the work that we do, I'm trying to avoid a financial problem that I see looming.
Got it.
What we would do is, once we found out that coalition of willing, we'd fill in the blanks and we'd have our proportionate share of that moral obligation, whether it's 6, 7, 2, or 3 towns, what have you, and we put it back in front of the board. And that's the support agreement y'all would adopt.
And what happens if one of the municipalities, one of the counties says we're not in?
That's why it's going to be a
And
tough
then,
conversation for the 2 commissioners here, is how do we service those citizens in that community?
okay, all right, yeah.
The option that we talked about at the commission meeting is a very good question, Bill, is we would probably have to self-fund a lot of our grants inside the county, right?
Yes, that would be one option. I'd have to come back and
That would
say,
be
Well, what
very
I'm saying,
complicated.
what I'm saying is, one of the counties decides not to get into it. And then there's a project in that county, and we find out that you're focusing all your efforts on that county project, when we were, man, they didn't even put in for it.
wouldn't do it. We couldn't do it. We would be
Okay.
prohibited from doing that for that exact reason.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I mean, because it does me no good to get cross-wired with you. If you all are upset with me, I don't have a job anymore. And I've been doing this long enough to know, protect the home team. And those that are willing to develop the tools and services that are needed reap the benefits from that. And those that don't, they sit on the sideline.
And generally speaking, after you sit on the sidelines a while and see the progress being
they
made
come
in
along.
other counties,
Yeah.
they glom on, or they find out the requirements or regulations that they're going to have to meet solo are too stringent and too cumbersome for them to meet by themselves.
Any further questions? If not, Mr. Jesse, make a motion since you sat on that committee.
Yes, yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we are approved for the first option. Is it option 1?
Option 1.
Option 1.
Further discussion?
Second.
I'm glad since you're on that committee too, you made that second. Wonderful.
No, I also like to say, you know, over the years, I can tell you, the money and grants that the PDC, with Louis on it, I guess you got a lot of other PDCs come to him to learn about the grant and the money because the money's out there. And Louis been doing it so long, you'd be surprised that the values of every dollar. What was that?
It was something like for every dollar you all invest, we put it in our dues letter every year. This year with our agency budget going over 12 million, it's something like $270, $250, something like that is returned back into the communities. The leverage ratio is unheard of. Unheard of. Now, for us, we do it because that's our charge to do. But I would stack up my leverage ratio against anybody else's out there, and I don't think you're going to find anybody's bringing anything close to that back into your community at the same time.
Yes, Mr. Lawrence, we're very lucky to have you and what you do for not only the commission, but for Middlesex County. And I appreciate you looking at Middlesex as the home team.
Yes, sir.
That's what we want to be, is a home team,
Yes, sir.
for sure. Any further discussion? Oh,
I got you.
roll call.
Not a problem. Oh, no, I got you, Anne Marie. Mr. Crittenden?
Aye.
Mr. Jesse?
Aye.
Mr. Williams? Mr. Bill Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Don Harris?
Aye, motion's approved.
All right. Thank you all very much for your
Thank you,
time
sir,
this
for
evening.
being here.
You all have a good evening.
Now, Louis, you can tell Gloucester, now that we've done it, they can.
I will.
Because they like to follow our lead on everything.
Yes, I know. Leadership by example.
Right.
That's right. Thank you all.
Okay, airport update. Anne Marie, are you going to cover that?
Yes, sir, I am. At this time, I'm asking the Board of Supervisors to authorize our purchase order and contract with Titan Aviation Fuels to provide, to supply fuel at our Hamilton Airport, effective December 1st, 2024. And this would be consistent with their proposal dated October 24th. County staff issued an RFP on September 26th for aviation fuel that just opened on October 24th. Only two providers submitted valid responses. They were reviewed separately by the airport manager, Richard Lewis, the assistant county administrator, me, and the accounting specialist, Brittany Thomas. At a meeting on September 28th, each of us submitted our recommendations, and surprisingly, separately, each of us indicated, well, all submissions were excellent. The county could do well with either. Titan Aviation Fuel submitted the better proposal. The county airport manager, that is Richard Lewis, performed background checks for Titan to confirm that they were good. The advantage we've not done is, we've been using Curtis for the past few months, and we've discovered that the advantage of using a single vendor is that the vendor provides point-of-sale card scanners with a reconciliation process, and their future is going to include training, advertising, uniform, plus the emergency fuel assistance, and a contract with Titan will confirm that these benefits will occur. As you know, this is not a cost to the county, it is a pass-through cost. The price of fuel is priced weekly, so when they deliver us the fuel, they might charge us, we'll say the price is $3.52. We would tack on a premium rate, so the people, the pilots, pay for this fuel plus a premium rate. So there is a net cost of zero, obviously, to the county, we don't pay for it. And what else was I gonna say? This is already budgeted. That was the final thing I was gonna say. The aviation fuel is budgeted in the airport fund. Any questions?
Any questions?
And the airport manager is available as well for questions if you have
Let's say
any
that
additional-
Titan, for some reason, just raised their price of fuel higher than the industry standard. How do we get out of the contract with them?
Okay, I'm guessing that one.
Did you hear that, Anne Marie?
Yes, I did. The contract will have our standard extraction terms, of course. But more importantly, the fuel is priced, well, let me grab where the words are, because there are words that describe what their basis is. And it's in their contract. It is called a weekly posted rack rate. And it's, so they can't just randomly increase it. So they are required to use the weekly posted rack rate, and then they add a couple of fees on top of the freight, federal tax, which is a known number, all those are known numbers. So they can't just randomly increase, and of course, if they did, we wouldn't buy it from them.
Well, increasing it more than the industry standard was just one scenario. There could possibly be others. So I guess my question is still, we can just cancel the contract with them at any time, or?
Right, there's going to be an extraction agreement that allows us to break the contract, just like there would for any other. Usually it's an appropriate, I'm looking for the right term in my brain. I want to call it the subject to appropriation agreement. The subject to appropriation terms that's in the public contract that we should issue.
So there is no contract currently before you. What's before you is the RFP, the response to the RFP. What staff is asking for is that you authorize us to execute, to prepare a contract and to move forward with this. And that is a standard clause that I include as an addendum. It's always subject to appropriation, and then we put a provision in there that says the county can cancel at any time for any reason. And that will, but we're asking for you to authorize so that we can keep moving forward.
Thank you, that's what I wanted to hear.
Yes, sorry, I didn't want to overstep, but I thought that's what you were asking for. And as Anne Marie mentioned, it's a standard addendum that I've prepared and they use.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, a motion would be ordered to continue with using Titan.
Authorize the purchase order.
Pardon me?
To authorize the purchase order and contract with Titan.
Yes.
And it'll be for 5 years, just for clarification on that.
Okay. Somebody want to make a motion on that?
The motion is to authorize a purchase order and contract for 5 years with Titan Aviation Fuels to supply fuel at the Hummel Field effective December 1, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Bill Harris made the motion, and Mr. Williams seconded the motion. Any further discussion? If not, roll call, please.
Mr. Jesse?
Aye.
Mr. Williams? Mr. Bill Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Crittenden?
Aye.
Mr. Don Harris?
Aye. Motion's approved. Okay. Moving right along, I think, Anne Marie, you have some information on Middlesex Broadband Authority Digital Opportunity Planning Activities Grant in the amount of $25,000. Would you like to speak to that?
I'm actually going to toss it to Kevin, the IT director and executive director of the broadband department, since he appears to be staying.
Okay?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to give you guys a brief update on what this entails. Dave, can you turn that down just a little bit? I'm kind of ringing a little bit. I'm sorry. You know where that volume button is. Thank you. If you were at our groundbreaking ceremony, you know that Dr. Holmes was encouraging us to apply for this particular grant. I also had some further conversations with our local executive director, librarian, kind of encouraging the authority to go after these funds. And what they would do is sort of, we've been working very hard as an authority on trying to get service to as many people as possible. But one of the things that we've struggled with a little bit is what else do we need to tackle in regards to the digital divide? So what this plan will help us do is sort of triage that and figure out where those, where we have underserved communities, whether it be, we may get the service to your house, but you still can't afford it. Where there is digital literacy issues, where people don't really understand how to interface with these systems and maybe even computers, and that's kind of where the library comes in. I want to be clear, this is a plan. This is something that we put together, and then we can then go after and apprehend, future funds to sort of address things like that. We talked about things like maybe a digital navigator at the library, where people can come in and get one-on-one tutelage with somebody like Greg Grickmeyer that's on our authority who does this all the time. So it's $25,000. We have a partner in Broadband Telecom. You'll probably remember their name if you've been here for a while. They helped us go after Batty Grant funds several years ago. And they're doing this for Gloucester, Virginia Beach, and another locality. So they've been in this kind of wheelhouse where they're looking at all these metrics, and they kind of know our community pretty well. And so they're going to work with us to come up with this plan. Important to note, the $25,000 would be reimbursed, the entire thing. It wouldn't even be an entire $25,000. But we would need to pay them upfront, and then we would be reimbursed by the grant from DHCD. So we have the funds, but we always want to be transparent and make sure that you guys know what we're doing, just because we want you to know what we're doing, and also we want to make sure that it involves money, so we want to make sure that everybody feels it's a good use of our resources. Any questions about that?
I just have one.
Yes, sir.
One of the things that's brought up is a working waterfront and how I might be able to assist some of the watermen. And you mentioned the term wheelhouse. I understand what you. And I'm sure with other professions, this is possibly the same, but the watermen are having to do electronic reporting for their catches in some instances. Is there anything that maybe we could incorporate some help with them on doing such? I know one of the things they were having people go to libraries and so forth and so on, and it was kind of a rough start to it. Pretty much you were on your own and have an officer come and help you if need be, but that was so I just wonder, put that in back of your mind when you're going through these things, if it's something that
Absolutely
would help with that. Like I say, I'm sure there's other occupations that require you to report monthly on what you do, but the commercial waterman is one of them that they're making do it more and more now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's the kind of feedback that we love, because
Thank you.
that's where you have a little bit of insight that maybe we don't, and that's what this plan is going to kind of help us do, is identify those places where we really need to put the work in. So thank you for that question, and we'll definitely look at that.
So I think you still need action from the board, though, because this is going to be a pass-through. The money will be received by the county. So it would,
We were going to put that on, Heather.
oh,
We were
okay,
going to put that on the next agenda
okay.
because we don't really have confirmation that we're getting this contract. I think we'll, and let me clarify, the broadband authority will be funding this, of course, and then we'll be getting reimbursement via this grant. We'll apply for the grant during the month of November, the deadline's November 15th.
That's right.
We'll confirm we're going to come back with an approval to the board to appropriate and, is that acceptable? Because I didn't give you all anything, I feel bad.
Yeah, it's a 6-month program. Yep.
So let me,
We just didn't have time to bring you.
so let me revise that. I think what would be appropriate is for the board to provide consensus that they're in support of you pursuing this grant. Let me say it that way.
Is there consensus from everybody for Kevin to move forward?
All right? Yes,
Okay.
so here's, thank you.
Thank you. And just to give a brief update, I know it's getting late, but on our fiber project with All Points, we look like we may have our first subscriber connected by the end of the year, and things are going along really well. We've run into one small area where there's an easement issue where we have to go underground, and we actually talked about it at our last Broadband Authority meeting, and we brought it up on the map, and one of our members, Steve Barnett, said, "That's my house," which is significant because there's 60 houses in there that can't be served until we figure that out. And so we're going to be working with that landowner to try to get over that hump and make sure we get all those folks served. But right now, things are going really well. The next thing will be BEAD, and I'll come back to talk to you more about that as that develops. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gentry. Okay, moving right along. Regular agenda items, citizens' appointments. Is that you, Anne Marie, or somebody else?
It is, this would be me. So at this time, we only have, the candidate recommendation, we have 2 vacancies right now, one on the board of zoning appeals, we have 0 applicants for that. We have 1 vacancy on the airport committee due to the separation of Chip Gold. And we had 2 people apply for that. We had a Ray Burt, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. I was reading off the wrong paper. We had a Janice Moore and a Tony Kirk, both applied, Tony Kirk Jr., both applied for the airport committee. So I wasn't sure, I don't have any recommendations on these. Let's see, if I have one thing I wanted to add on this. That's all I have. And we'll point one or consider something else.
And I think Ms. Moore has been on a waiting list for a while. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. We would need a motion.
I move that Ms. Moore be accepted with the Airport Committee.
Second?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Crittenden, seconded by Mr. Bill Harris. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Bill Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Crittenden?
Yes.
Mr. Jesse?
Aye.
And Mr. Don Harris.
Yes, motion's approved, so someone will contact Mrs. Moore and let her know where we are with that? Wonderful. Well, yeah, probably need to talk about that because we're lacking somebody on the BZA for Saluda. Would he be interested in that? I don't know. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. All right? Yes.
I did talk to Mr. Kirk a couple weeks ago. The staff coordinator actually reached out to him. He said that he moved back to the area, he lives in Urbana, and he's looking for something to contribute to the county. So I believe he would be interested.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir, for those comments, and we'll decide what we can do with that. Okay, moving right along. Administrative updates. We have a cigarette tax. You see the report. Staff reports. Any questions on staff reports? Okay. Moving right along. Free GPS vehicle tracker. No report. What are we doing with that, Anne Marie? Or
That is me. I'm going to bring up to your attention that we have an opportunity list free GPS trackers for 3 months for free. They're Verizon, the company called Verizon, the phone company. They will give you free for 3 months GPS trackers to put in your vehicles. We're going to install them in all the administrative and our basically county vehicles, not the sheriff's office. They've got their own tracking system. What this does is identifies where the vehicles are, and you're also able to identify the fuel, the usage, the mileage. We found, I found it providing my evaluator did not realize in the vehicles. And again, what I'd like to do is at least give this a test. I'm letting you all know that yes, there are people in the world that don't look at their vehicle tracks. I'm not saying anybody here does. A lot of people don't look and go, why you brought in here. So I wanted to put that out there and let you all know that it is my plan to proceed without, unless you all tell me no. That's where it is.
okay.
I think this kind of follows something that you all addressed about in the past, and that is an asset management system. Where are our assets? Part of that is where are the vehicles and what are we doing?
So you're just looking for a consensus from the board?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, everybody okay with her
think it's a good idea.
proceeding on with that and see how it works?
Right. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, but after 3 months, we got to start paying for it, correct?
That's correct, and I do have sufficient funds to pay for it. It is,
I-
bear with me, I think it's $14.95 per vehicle.
I got to hear from the county administrator on this, because this involves the employees, and we're trusting that the vehicle's going to be in the right spot, and everyone's going to be gainfully employed. And he's the one that takes care of their evaluations and so forth and so on. I really, Matt, I appreciate your comments on this before I say.
Yeah, we want to give this a try for a variety of reasons. There's been a couple of examples, one recently where we had maintenance staff that was in the area of a complaint that we had received, but we called the other maintenance person. They had to drive halfway across the county to go up and look at a dock that had some issues. I think we want to give it a try. At least a free trial and see how it works out. And, you know, we have no expectation of having county vehicles in an inappropriate spot. We're not overly worried about that, but we would like to have a good track on them to see how much time a vehicle's here or there, and be able to plan a little bit better and have a little bit better plan accordingly, so to speak. This also, as I discussed it with Anne Marie, coincides with our budget process. So if it's something that we don't see a lot of value in after we give it a trial, we just won't do it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr.
Thank you
Chair,
for
I
asking.
think it's a good idea too, because you think about it, at least you kind of know where your vehicles are, or somebody could get sick or somewhere and you're trying to get a hold of them, you don't know where they're at, you can track them and know right where they're at, because, you know, anything can help me anytime.
That's right.
So I think it's a good trial and see what happens.
Yep.
Okay, great.
May I know this is administrator comments. If I may, can I also, Matt, bring up the update on the park?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're assistant county administrator, you're part of this report too.
Thank you.
But you're standing between the board and their dinner, Anne Marie, I'm just gonna warn you.
Can I share pictures per chance?
Yep. Kevin can authorize that, I do believe. There you are.
Okay, it says I'm screen sharing. So I just want to let you know that the parts of the playground are coming out of the ground. As you can see on the one right now, there's the crab that we talked about, the ship that we've got. Let's see if I can get any more of the pictures that are closer to the crab. There's the slide and the fishing shack. And get another picture of that. So I just wanted to, I don't have any more expectations. Screen sharing. It stopped. I don't have, this is my expectation for the project. They should finish installing those parts this week. They should start installing the spray, the soft ground by next week. Maybe we'll have this installed by Thanksgiving. The whole thing installed and completed. It does take about 3 more weeks, but I think we've got that. And after that, we'll have our grand opening, a wedding. So that's all I had on that.
Wonderful, it's looking good. Thank you for all your work on that. All righty.
I've got a couple of things.
Go ahead.
And I know I'm standing between you and dinner, so I will try to be pretty quick. Some of it Kurt covered for me. We did have an update from the Virginia Marine Resources Commission. They approved the Broad Creek dredge on October the 28th. They're in the process of issuing the actual permit. That takes a little bit of time to draft with the stated conditions and whatnot. One condition that they do have, as was, I believe, reported in the paper, they are asking us to separate in somehow, shape, or form, keep segregated the sands that come out of the internal portion of the creek, the finer silty sands, and the more coarser sands that are more out in the channel, out in the river proper. That's going to be fairly easy to accommodate, we believe. I don't think it rises to the level that they're going to actually require us to put in a new cell at the dredged spoils area. We have 2 cells out there, if you're familiar with it. We have one for Jackson Creek and one for Broad Creek. That's a whole story behind that I won't get into tonight. But basically keeping them separated and off to a side. We're waiting on the actual verbiage of that permit to come out so we can see how we're going to react to that. And of course, Kurt did reference the May 15th to the July 31st set aside for a species of threatened or endangered bat that we don't even know is on the site, but this is pretty much just county-wide. To allow, what was it? I think it's a long-eared or a long-nosed bat. What is it, Dave? Long-eared bat, ears and noses or something. But we're going to be okay dodging that. Nothing on sand sharks. So we didn't have the same thing that Matthews had. Sandbar sharks, at least not yet. Of course, when we get the final permit, we'll look at that. One of the things that staff does want to update the board on is we're in the process of trying to remove some of the vegetation from the spoil site itself, the internal basin. We're probably going to need to regrade the internal portion of the basin so that it drains a little better. I mentioned earlier this evening that we've had contractors in there working and harvesting the sands. Whoever was in there last left some ponds that we need to drain. And we'll probably have to reshape, regrade the site. We got a price from Seaward on that. We're getting competing prices on that. Make sure we get the best price. And then also, I've got our own maintenance staff working on some catwalk improvements near the sluice gates. There's some bars, safety bars missing, some handrails, things of that nature. Stuff that we can do in-house, that we have the skill set to do. We're trying to do that in-house. And that's really all I could say about it. There is one other little nuance issue that we're dealing with, and that is the last time we dredged Broad Creek, I think I was planning director at the time, and I remember installing a pipe under the road per VDOT specifications. Well, we are in the process of locating that pipe. because no one could remember, well, did the pipe stay or did it go? Did they remove the pipe? I'm 99% sure we did not remove the casing that was installed under the road.
So it's a sleeve for the pipe
A
to be
sleeve,
pulled
yeah,
through.
a
Okay.
casing. Yeah, why would you? Once you install the casing, you leave it alone so you can use it in the future. But we're in the process of working with VDOT to dig down and locate that on the plans, and that will go a long way to help expedite the process. I should have said it earlier, but I do want to publicly commend Louis and Kurt and the guys at PDC and Mark, our consultant, that's working with Dave and myself, mostly Dave. Dave has to do this to me sometimes to make sure I'm paying attention to the dredge stuff, but he's doing a good job. We wouldn't be as far along as we are now without them. We did have a question in the community, well, why is it taking so much longer when you basically dredged Jackson Creek with nothing, no problem, you got it done? Because we had to start from scratch. We didn't have a maintenance permit we can lean on. We had to literally start from scratch, so go through the whole process. And I think the last time Broad Creek was dredged was the last time Army Corps of Engineers dredged it. So this is our first time dredging the creek. And, well, we're moving along. We'll try to get that thing done as soon as possible, because I've seen the pictures of the boat struggling to get in and out of the inlet, so to speak. Any questions on the dredging? I just wanted to fill in around the edges of what
Thank you.
Kurt talked about.
What's your pleasure, board members? You want to continue on a little bit? We have the draft the budget agenda, county attorney, unfinished business. Do you want to do that when we return at 7? Or do you want to continue on?
And I'm not asking for any action on the budget, the draft budget calendar. It's just FYI.
Okay, good.
Yep. Yep. I'll get that from you either next month or in January.
Okay, well, since you've done that, yes, because I need to look at some dates and times that may or may not be effective. And I know last year we changed a little bit as we went, but you have it in your packet, so please take a look at it.
Really, the only major deviation from our expedited budget calendar last year is we're moving the agency officers and departments' presentation of their budget request to the board up one Friday, up to January 24th instead of the first Friday in February. That's the biggest, most fundamental change to the process.
All right, wonderful. County attorney update, Ms. Lewis?
I do not have anything beyond what's in my staff report.
Wonderful. All right. With that, then, I'm going to close the meeting now. Huh?
Recess?
We're going to take a recess, yeah, and come back after or at 7 o'clock.
Yes, sir, sounds good.
Okay, do we need a motion on that?
I think you can just call the recess. We'll let that go.
Or,
But we'll do a motion. Is there a motion to recess?
You got food?
we got several members, several things we need to talk about in closed session.
No, wait a minute. Are you trying to go into closed session, or are you trying to take like a break?
I'm trying to go into closed session.
Okay, now, never mind. Okay, all right.
Okay? Sorry,
All
I
right,
wasn't
yeah.
clear on that.
Yeah. All right.
Yes.
Yeah, like we did last time.
Okay, so we're going to be in this room, and we're going to do closed session. We'll come out of closed session, and we'll have the public hearing and any action, if there is any, from the closed session, just for clarification.
Correct.
So you need a motion to convene in closed session pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A3 and subsection A8. This is so the board can discuss the acquisition of real property for a public purpose where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position of the public body, and to consult with legal counsel about the acquisition and specific legal questions of that process and said properties.
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Jesse to go into closed session.
Second.
Second by Mr. Crittenden. No further discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bill Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Crittenden,
Aye.
Mr. Jesse,
Aye.
Mr. Williams, Mr. Don Harris,
Aye.